Ano bang tingin natin sa kababaihan? Bakit mayroon pang nang aabuso ng kanilang kahinaan? Kahit saan, mayroon silang madilim na nararanasan sa pampublikong sasakyan. So yun ang bayad. Salamat. Makasiksik naman to, akala mo lamig na lamig. Singitan ko kaya? Kaso lang awkward naman.
Tayo may chika ko sa'yo, manong pwede pakinggan?
Sa loob ng paaralan,
Parang dyan na si Taba.
Ang taba-taba nga niya eh, ang asim-asim pa. Di nga bago yung blondie niya eh.
Parang dyan na si Taba.
Ang taba-taba nga niya, ang asim-asim pa. Ang taba-taba nga niya eh, ang asim-asim pa. Di nga bago yung blondie niya eh.
Miss, okay ka lang? Huwag mo na lang pasinin yung mga yun. Ganun talaga sila eh.
Oo, okay lang ako.
Maging sa mismong tahanan na siyang ugat dapat ng pagmamahalan. Ngunit may mga bagay na di inaasahan.
Letseng buhay to. Ako na nga'y nagluluto. Ako pa'y nagtatrabaho. Ako pa'y nagpapaaral. Nakikinig ka ba?
Hoy, ikaw! Ang dami mo sinasabi. Nakalimutan mo yatang ako pa rin yung lalaki sa bahay na to.
Ikaw nga ang lalaki. Wala ka naman silbi.
Matapang ka na? Lumalabang ka na?
Oo! Pa!
Huwag kang makialam dito. Magsama kayo.
Sana maalis natin sa ating yugto ng buhay yung mga ganitong pangyayari. Na sana gamitin natin ang lakas natin hindi para masaktan sila, kundi para maalagaan at bigyang halaga. Isa rin sa kailangan ay ang respeto, dahil kapwa tayo pinanganak ng ating mga ina na siyang unang babae sa ating buhay. Kaya nararapat lamang sa kanila ang mahalin at di ang saktan, kaya tayo na ang kumilos para sa kanila. I-ID ko lang po. Ang cute nyo kasi.
Lord? Hindi. Nandito ako. Bored ka ba? Walang magawa sa buhay? Wala kang jowa, no? Gusto mo bang makahanap ng girlfriend? Tamang-tama. Tutulungan kita. Ano pang hinihintay mo? Tara na! Kita mo yun? Titigan mo siya ng matagal. Masarap ka sa pakiramdam na tinitingnan mo na detalyado yung katawan niya? Masarap ba sa pakiramdam na natatakot siya? Mamaya, hahanap na yun ng ibang daan pa uwi. Uy, may bakla!
Saya nga. Uy, may isa pa. Nakita mo pangalan niya? Tara, isearch natin siya sa Facebook. Uy, purihin mo yung picture niya. Delete. Ayos lang ba sa'yo na tagatingin ka lang ng mga picture niya? Ayaw mo bang jowain? Sige, tagdarin mo para malaman niya na may gusto ka sa kanya. Naku, huwag ka magpadaig sa block na yan. Kung ako sa'yo, di ko yan titigilan. Gagawa ko ng paraan.
Uy, bakit mo ako blinak sa FB? Bakit mo ako chinachat? Pagbigyan mo na ako. Hi. Sige na nga. Meet up tayo sa bahay. Sige.
Ano yan? Kadiri! Bakal ka?
Hindi, babae na ako.
Hindi ka tunay na babae. Kadiri! Kadiri! Dapat sa inyo pinapako sa krus. Salot! 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 Kadiri ka, tol!
Nararamdaman mo ba nararamdaman ko? Katabi mo na yung magiging jowa mo. Ano pang hinihintay mo? Paramdam mo na ang pagmamahal mo. Bad move, dude. Baba ka muna. Di pa yun yung dawat.
Para!
Dito, siguradong masiyahin ng mga tao. Sige, ayun si ate, oh. Tawagin mo.
Eh!
Ayun, isa pa. Kulit-insulit lang tayo, tol.
Can I buy a drink? Sabi ko, can I buy a drink?
Di ka nakakuha ng jowa, no? Wala naman kasi dapat na dahilan sa pangmamanyak. Pag sinabing ayaw, ayaw talaga. Pero congrats! Pabigat ka sa lipunan at hihiyan ka sa pamilya mo. But wait, there is more. Nanalo ka ng more notification sa nearest police station. But wait, there is more. May bonus ka na tickets papunta sa Inferno.
Alas-tres pa lang ah. Stress pa lang. Ilang araw na yan, di na naman ako makakatulog. Aabangan ko na talaga to eh. Tangina, nakaraan pa yun ah! Oh, tingnan nyo nang bapadalo kayo, tapos nagkakalat pa kayo oh! Kayo pala yun eh!
Ako po si Josie. Nakatira malapit sa inyo. Hirap na ako. Gusto ko nang umuwi. Lagi akong pinagbibintangan at pinapaamin. Tulungan niyo ako.
Hello? Opo. May gusto lang po sana kayo reklamo.
Naglalakad sa isang pasilyong aking paboritong pasyalan habang ang aking mga kamaoy unti-unting kumuyong. Papalapit ng papalapit sa iisang lugar na puno ng puot at bigati. Musmus pa lamang ay alam ko nang hindi magiging masaya at perpekto ang aking pamilya. Araw-araw ko na lamang na nakikita ang aking mga magulang na nagbabangayan. Dahil nga't mahina ang babae kaysa sa mga lalaki, ay palagi na lamang ang aking ina ang nakakawawa. Umabot na nga sa suktulan ang pananakit ni Ama. Sa tuwing umuwi ako galing sa eskwela, ay lagi kong nasisilayan na may umuusbong na namang bagong pasa sa katawan ng aking ina. Alam kong mahal ako ng aking ina. Mahal na mahal. Ngunit walang magagawa ang pagmamahal na iyon laban sa hagupit ng galit ng aking ama na kung minsan pa'y sa akin na ibubuntun. Tandang-tanda ako pa ang mga kaganapan, ang mga nanlilisik na mga mata ni Ama habang nakatingin ng diretso sa akin. Dumating naman si Ina, ngunit wala rin itong nagawa kundi saluhin na lamang ang mga palo ng walang habag naming haligi ng tahanan. kailangan kong magpakatatag. Kailangan. Yan ang mga salitang inukit ko sa aking utak. Magpapakatatag ako alang-alang sa aking ina. Kaya sa kabila ng pang-aalikos na ni Ama, ipinagpatuloy namin ng buhay kasama siya sa iisang bubong. Sinubukan namin tumakas sa kamay na mapagpaltrato kong Ama, ngunit hindi ito natuloy. Sa halip, bugbog na naman ang aming sinabi. Lumipas ang panahon at paulit-ulit pa rin ang mga pangyayari. Narinig ko na lamang habang ako'y naglalakad papalik sa aming tahanan ang hiyaw ng pagsaklolo ni Inay. Aking naabutan ang gumimpal sa buo ng tahanan. Kaagad ako lumapit at sinakluhan si Inay na ngayon ay naghahabol ng kanyang iniya. Isang malawak na hampas ang aking pinakawalan sa kanyang sentido. Nawalan siya ng malay. Naabutan ko na lamang ay ang unti-unting pagsara ng kanyang mga mata at ang unti-unti rin pagbagsak ng kanyang katawan. Inay, ako'y patawarin mo at ako'y walang nagawa sa panahong iyon. Isa akong mahina at walang kwentang anak. Sana ay mapatawad niyo ako. Kung sana noon pa ay mayroon ng batas katulad ng vowsy, ay sana may nagawa man lamang ako upang mapigilan ang inyong paglisan sa aking tabi. Ngunit huli na. Huli na ang lahat para sa pagsisisi. Ang tangi ko na lamang magagawa ay huwag nang hayaan sa panahong ito ay maulit pa sa iba ang dinanas nating pagturusan noon. Makakahinga at makakatulog na rin ako ng maayos sa gabi. Dahil ang taong sanhi ng ating
Kasi na yung papulit.
Good morning. Gusto tulog mo? Kaya na. Oh.
sundan na natin si CJ.
Buwit na iya ka nga ngayon. Oo.
Arte mo naman. Parang di mo naman nagustuhan yung ginawa natin kagabi. Tangina, Johan, ano na naman to? Ulit-ulit na lang. Di ba gusto ko pag-upo dito? Nandito na yung kape ko. O, Kaloy. Dito ka na pala. Kape. Johan!
Saglit lang.
Ite, ako na.
Di na. Ako na kumain ka na lang dyan.
Well, hayaan mo siya. Kaya niya yan. Di ba, Johan? Kaya mo yan?
May ka lang dyan, te.
Kumain ka na dyan.
Eh, iguan na kayo. Nga pala. Gabi, talo na naman yung basketball team namin. Ang bobo. Di ka ba naglalaro ng basketball? Eh. Nga pala, mahina ka. Tangina naman, Joan! Ano to? Kape ba to? Ang bobo mo naman talaga. Wala ka na ba ibang alam kung di mo makakasahay sa gabi?
Uy, kuya.
Bakit? Totoo naman eh. Masarap naman talaga eh.
May bata, oh.
Bata, paglaki niyan, sa akin magmamana yan.
Hindi.
Baka nga mas magaling pa sa akin yan eh.
Hindi. Sa akin magmamana tong si CJ, di ba si Jay? Lalaki kang may respeto sa babae, ah.
Bakla! Bakit? Sinasabi yung bang wala ko respeto sa babae? Di pa pwedeng lalaki lang? Ang tunay na lalaki, matapang, malakas, walang inuurungan, at higit sa lahat, hindi iniiwanan ng mga babae.
Lalaki. Yun ba yung lalaki? Parang di marunong magpakalalaki.
Hindi lang talaga ako mahina. Duwag. At higit sa lahat, di pa ako iniiwan ng mga babae.
Eh di, hindi lalaki si Papa. Iwan ni Mama eh.
Eh, mahina siya. Gaya mo. Kaya yan si Joanne. Pag iniwan ako niyan, may kalalagyan sa akin yan.
Di mo na sana pinakasalan kung sasaktan mo rin.
Eh, bakit? Asawa ko na yun eh. Pwede kong gawin kahit ano.
Yun yan. Yan yung ginawa ni Papa nun. Nangyari sa pamilya natin. Iniwan tayo ni Mama. Dahil nga ba saan?
Dahil pinagpalit niya tayo sa tomboy.
Dahil sa pagpapakalalaki ni Tatay. Diba? Akala nyo kasi, kapag rinespeto nyo yung babae, nakakalaglag ng bayag ninyo. Ano? Gagawin mo yung ginawa nila noon? Gagawin mo yun kahit na alam mong mali? Baka hindi lang respeto yung wala sa'yo, kuya. Baka pati yung utak mo. Uy, Kate!
Oh,
Tulala ka na naman.
di ah.
Ito nga, gutom lang yan. Kumain ka.
Uy, hi!
Hi! Kala ko ba magre-review ka?
Nag-review ka.
Ba't naka-headset ka?
Nakarecord kasi yung mga nililito ko para try mo. Ito mo ba?
Kate!
Tayo nga muna.
Sama ka na sa lalaking yun! Ako pakialam, tapusin ko tayo mga ang ating kailangan.
Marvin,
Tinapos mo pa, ikahapon pa yan. Bilang mo ako yung sila, nakaka-stress ka?
masakit kasi yung puson ko, hindi kita mabibilan.
Di mas mainam, bili ka na lang napkin mo ron. Kaya mapapabili ka?
Hindi na.
Sige, ayos na.
Okay ka lang ba?
Okay lang naman ako.
May kumakalat yung balita eh. Tungkol sa inyo ni Marvin.
Anong balita?
Kinakalat niya sa buong campus eh.
Oh, Marvin, ba't andito ka? May alak ka. Ano nangyari sa mata mo?
Kakakataon na natin ito, Kate.
Oh, ano yung ginagawa mo? Ba't tinatanggal mo yan? Hindi ka pwede maligo dito.
Aray ko, Marvin, nasasaktan ako.
Masasaktan ka, Kate, pag nanlaban ka.
Huwag ngayon, please. May tamang panahon para dyan.
Bakit ka ba kasi tumatanggi? Tayong dalawa lang naman nandito, di ba? Wala naman nanay mo dito para ipagtanggol ka. Wala ka na din tatay, Kate, kaya ako na lang meron ka. Tandaan mo yan.
Wag. Marvin, wag. Please. Ayoko, please. Tawad.
Makaawa ka na magmakaawa. Wala kang magagawa. Babae ka lang.
Marvin, ano ba? Ngayon ko lang baka babatingin mo sa akin.
Tumatanggi ka pa? Bakit? Nagwalay ka na ba?
Alam mo, mahal kita. Marvin. Oo, matagal na tayo. Pero may tamang panahon para sa lahat.
Nilalaman ka na? Di ba may klase ka? Nagagalit ka ba?
Wala ka nang tinira sa akin kahihiyan.
Kaiyan?
Hindi mo alam? Tanga ka ba? Marvin, ayoko na. Maghiwalay na tayo.
Diyan ka lang. Pa tayo tapos. Ganon. Tutulungan niyo ako? Marvin, tama na. Hindi nahiya sa ginagawa mo, Marvin eh. Marvin yung ginagawa mo, Marvin. Kinakampihan niyo yan. Ano ko ba lalaki kayo? Hindi namin siya kinakampihan. Ayaw namin gusto niyo na ginagawa mo. Kung ganon, sama kayo!
Sige Marvin, ituloy mo lang yan. Hindi lang kahit sa abutin mo sa akin, papakulong din kita.
Wala akong ginawa masama! Nagpara lang ako!
sumitsit ay pangmangmang, ang sumipol ay panghunghang. Ang babae sa lansangan, huwag hiritan kundi igalang.
Pare, ang catcalling ay isang uri ng sexual harassment. Di biro ang sexual harassment at di nakakamacho ang pang-aabuso.
Huwag hiritan kundi igalang.
Isang paalala mula sa Philippine Commission on Women.
Chong 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 pasipol-sipol, mga manong sa labas, magpigil at gumalang, kaya ikaw sara bibig, kundi maganda ang lalabas.
Pare, ang catcalling ay isang uri ng sexual harassment. Di biro ang sexual harassment at di nakakamacho ang pang-aabuso.
Kaya ikaw sara bibig, kundi maganda ang lalabas.
Isang paalala mula sa Philippine Commission on Women.
Chong 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 pasipol-sipol, mga manong sa labas, magpigil at gumalang, kaya ikaw sara bibig, kundi maganda ang lalabas.
Pare, ang catcalling ay isang uri ng sexual harassment. Di biro ang sexual harassment at di nakakamacho ang pang-aabuso.
Kaya ikaw sara bibig, kundi maganda ang lalabas.
Isang paalala mula sa Philippine Commission on Women.
Good afternoon to all our online viewers. Bago po tayo magsimula sa ating online talakayan towards vow-free barangays, narito po ang house rules na kailangan nating sundin. Since this is streaming live on Facebook, we encourage all participants to interact with us through the comment section. Let us all be respectful when posting or sharing our thoughts. Remember that the comment section is a public space, so please avoid giving sensitive personal information about yourself or any other person. We will be having some energizers or mini quizzes. Please make sure that you follow the instructions so you will be qualified to win our exciting prizes. If you have a question about today's topic, please post it at the comment section of our live stream at the PCW Facebook page. Questions will be responded to during the open forum. The presentation materials of our resource persons will also be uploaded to the 2020 18-Day Campaign to End Vow webpage, which you can access through www.pcw.gov.ph. We will issue a certificate of participation for this online talakayan only to those who will submit or accomplish the following. First, attendance form. Second, activity feedback form. And third, the personal commitment to end vow. We will explain this further towards the end of our program, but for now, you can all see the link to our attendance form at the text description of the live stream at the PCW Facebook page. Don't forget to share this live stream so we can reach more people and keep them empowered with information. Thank you very much.
Men move together, move now, let freedom from violence be our vow. Be a brother, a partner and a friend. Let us bring all violence against women to an end. There's no need to give things that money can buy. Show the true love that is really felt inside. Gold and riches are not the only things we need. Love is something pure that is given for free. Men move together, we move now, let freedom from violence be our vow. Be a brother, a partner and a friend. Let us bring all violence against women to an end. Never harm nor hurt, don't you ever scream at them. Voice nor force to.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the fifth and final episode of our Online Talakayan towards vow-free barangays. Human, hindi laruan. Laws against trafficking in persons. I am Rebecca Bailoses, and I will be your host this afternoon. To start, let us all dedicate a few solemn moments for the prayer to end vow, to be followed by the Philippine National Anthem.
As we observe the 18-day campaign to end violence against women or VOW from November 25th to December 12th, we ask you, Lord, to look with kindness upon all of us who are gathered here. Fill our hearts and minds with love, wisdom, and courage as we face our daily lives. We pray for all women and girls who suffer from domestic violence, rape, incest, sexual harassment, trafficking, prostitution, and other forms of violence. May they have the courage to break their silence, find protection, healing, and justice. We pray for the perpetrators of VOW that they may learn to respect women and girls and stop the violence. O loving Father and Mother, send us your Spirit so that everything that we do will be done with love and respect for our fellow humans. Regardless of age, sex, class, ethnicity, and ability, O powerful God, develop in us a high regard for the thoughts, feelings, and experiences of everyone, and bestow on us the capacity to promote, protect, and fulfill the rights of women and girls. Almighty Creator, grant us the strength to stand up against all forms of violence happening to women and girls, the sharpness to recognize a silenced victim of VOW, the courage to speak up against VOW, the resourcefulness to help a victim of VOW, and the resolve to never commit any form of VOW. For all of this, we implore your guidance. Amen.
Noon pa man, malaki na ang naging bahagi ng mga kababaihan sa lipunang Pilipino. Kaisa sila sa marubdob na paghahangad ng kalayaan ng ating lahi. Kabilang sila sa paglinang ng ating makulay na sining at mayamang kultura. Kasapi sila sa pagtataguyod ng mga adhikain ng kapwa mamamayan at sa pagtugon sa mga pangangailangan ng lipunan. Katuwang sila sa pagtuklas sa mga larangan ng agham at medisina. Kapanalig sila sa pagpapairal ng batas, karapatan at katarungan para sa lahat. Kabahagi sila sa paglilingkod sa bayan at sa pagpapanatili ng demokrasyang Pilipino. Sa paglipas ng panahon, hindi nagmaliw ang kanilang pag-ibig sa ating inang bayan. Mga kababayan, ito ang alay ng mga kababaihang Pilipino para sa bayan. Tumayo po tayong lahat at sabay-sabay nating awitin ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
Ayaw magiliw, dala sa silangan, alam ng puso, sa lilim mo'y buhay. Lupang hirang, gulatan ng magiging, sa manlulupin, di ka masisingil, sa nagatang tulog sa sigahan, sa lalim ng baba, may ginatang tula at awit sa tunay na minamahal. Ang isang ng patawad ko'y kalupay na nagliligid, ang
To officially open our afternoon session, we are honored to have Assistant Secretary Nicolas Felix T. of the Department of Justice to give us his opening remarks. Asik T. graduated cum laude from the University of the Philippines School of Economics with a degree in Business Economics. He graduated from the UP College of Law and was admitted to the Philippine Bar in 2004. He is also a graduate he also has a graduate diploma in European Union Studies from the European Union Institute in Japan and a master's degree in International Economics and Business Law from the Kyushu University Faculty of Law through a scholarship sponsored by the Japanese government. Nikki T, as he is more commonly known, is the Assistant Secretary in charge of the Inter-Agency Council Against Trafficking under the Department of Justice. Prior to this, he served as the Director of the UP Law Center, Institute of Government and Law Reform, while concurrently teaching at the UP College of Law as an assistant professor. Let us all welcome Asek Nicolas Felix T.
Thank you. Thank you for that introduction, Rebecca. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir, we could hear you loud and
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Rebecca. Okay. So to Sandra S. Montano, Chairperson of the Philippine Commission on Women, to my colleagues in the DOJ, Assistant State Prosecutor Yvette Coronel, and Assistant State Prosecutor Karla Cabel, to the representatives from the PCW, DOJ, IACAT, and the Commission on Human Rights, and to all of our guests and fellow workers in government, good afternoon. Violence and threats are everyday realities which women around the world have to face. Every so often, we hear of stories of women being abused, ranging from actions that normalize rape culture, like catcalling and victim blaming, to the more overt crimes of assault and human trafficking. In fact, the recent United Nations Secretary General's report noted that 72% of all trafficking victims globally are comprised of women and girls, with 77% thereof having been trafficked for sexual exploitation. These are reports which are definitely no longer new to our ears. Unfortunately, the COVID-19 pandemic has aggravated the already strained situation of women, including those who are underage, whose vulnerability are already at risk of being exploited even under normal circumstances. Though it would have been safe to assume that the stringent measures implemented at the onset of the pandemic, such as the nationwide and localized lockdowns, would have deterred criminal activity, it only forced organized crime groups to adapt to the new normal. Hence, in addition to the difficult plight of women in our communities, the abuse and degradation of women now pervade cyberspace, leading to online sexual exploitation and forced pornography. These examples only highlight the many pressing issues plaguing the women's sector. Thus, as chair of the Inter-Agency Council Against Trafficking and as the lead agency in addressing trafficking in persons, we at the Department of Justice are truly grateful to our partners at the PCW for spearheading this online talakayan. Having these online platforms through which we, as duty bearers, reach out to our stakeholders is a significant step towards safeguarding the welfare of Filipino women. Toward this end, the importance of raising awareness on the current situation of the women's sector, particularly in terms of human trafficking, and of communicating to our stakeholders the systems in place cannot be underscored enough. On the other hand, in the same manner that these criminal syndicates become more innovative, we in the government, from the national agencies to the local units, must always endeavor not just to keep up, but to remain ahead of their illicit activities by constantly improving upon existing mechanisms, introducing new measures, that correspond to the evolving needs of the marginalized and the vulnerable, and forging stronger ties with our institutional partners, we draw ever nearer to achieving our goal of building a safer community for women and girls, both online and offline. I truly believe that by the end of this activity, we will have gained a deeper understanding of the needs of the women's sector and a heightened knowledge on how to address women's concerns, in furtherance of our fight to stamp out the double menace of human trafficking and violence against women. Maraming salamat po at mabuhay ang kababaihang Pilipino.
Maraming salamat, Asst, for your continued support to the anti-vow advocacy and for the stern reminder on the pressing issues of trafficking in persons exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. Tama po yung inyong sinabi, no? Safer community for women and girls, online and offline. Now, the vow-free PH advocacy remains strong as we receive support from partner agencies and organizations tulad na lamang po ng iba't ibang embahada dito sa Pilipinas, partikular na ang British Embassy Manila. Para po magbigay ng message of support, makakasama natin si Charge d'Affaires Alastair Totty ng British Embassy. Good to have you here po and take it away.
Hello, I'm Alastair Totty, Charge d'Affaires at the British Embassy here in Manila. I'm here today to talk to you about our 18-day campaign to end violence against women. The British Embassy in Manila supports the Philippine Commission on Women's 18-day campaign to end violence against women. This also coincides with the global awareness-raising campaign, the 16 Days of Activism Against Gender-Based Violence, that runs annually from the 25th of November to the 10th of December. Violence against women is not just an issue of human rights violation or gender inequality. More importantly, it is a public health concern. The World Health Organization estimates that 1 in 3 of women, 35% worldwide, have experienced physical violence in their lifetimes. Violence against women at home, at school, at work or in the community can never be justified. We must ensure that our environments are safe spaces where women feel empowered to achieve their full potential. Here in the Philippines, gender equality and women's empowerment are the cornerstones of our policy and programme work. We are partnering with local government units as well as civil society organisations in this regard. In Mindanao, we are helping to empower Bangsamoro women as political leaders equipped with the right expertise to identify and influence key policy and legislative changes. We continue to support the Bangsamoro Women's Commission on gender-responsive budgeting, including sharing experience on the drafting of the Bangsamoro Gender and Development Code, which will underpin gender and development work in the region. We welcome the Philippine Commission on Women's decisive commitment to end gender-based violence. I urge everyone to stand in solidarity with their 18-day campaign against violence against women. Maraming salamat.
Thank you, Charge d'Affaires Alastair Totty, for your unceasing efforts towards gender equality and the elimination of violence against women. Ngayon naman po, alam ko excited na kayo sa ating online talakayan ngayong hapon, pero bago ang lahat, kaunti munang pampasigla for all our online viewers. Ready na ba kayo para sa first round ng ating energizers? Ayan, pa-comment na lang po sa ating comment section para malaman namin kung ready na po kayo. Lahat po ay pwedeng sumali basta nakatuto kayo sa ating Facebook Live. Make sure lang po na sundin ang ating mga instructions. Una po, we will be flashing the questions on the screen. Pero bago po kayo sumagot, hintayin munang lumabas ang marker ng ating Facebook page para makount o maisali ang inyong answers. Ganito po ang itsura ng marker. Answers to question number blank here. And meron po kayong makikitang arrow. Iyan ang makikita ninyo dito sa ating screen kung ano ang itsura. Pag lumabas na ang marker at alam po ninyo ang tamang sagot, mag-comment agad sa ating live stream para makita ng ating Facebook team. The first one to post the correct answers below the marker will win. For the first round, we will have 10 questions and 10 winners na i-announce po namin mamaya bago matapos ang ating programa. Tandaan na isang beses lang po pwedeng manalo ang isang participant sa session na ito. Each winner will receive a special package from PCW pero maipapadala lamang po namin ito kung ang inyong mailing address ay nasa Pilipinas. Okay po ba? Sundin lang po ang instructions. Ready? Let's start na. Question number 1. Ang Republic Act blank ay isinabatas para wakasan ng trafficking in persons. Layunin nito na magpatupad ng mga patakaran para protektahan at suportahan ang mga biktima at maparusahan ang mga lumalabag sa batas. Ulitin ko po, question number 1. Ang Republic Act number blank ay isinabatas para wakasan ang trafficking in persons. Layunin nito na magpatupad ng mga patakaran para protektahan o suportahan ang mga biktima at maparusahan ang mga lumalabag sa batas. Ayan po. And we have a winner. Ang tamang sagot po ay 9208 as amended by Republic Act 10364 or Republic Act 10364. Nire-recognize po ang pantay na karapatan at inherent human dignity of women and men as enshrined in the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights at iba pang universally accepted international conventions kung saan kabilang ang ating bansa. So ayan po, makikita niyo po on red font ang tamang sagot sa ating question number 1. So ayan po, dumako naman po ngayon tayo sa ating question number 2. Tama o mali? Ang pagbabayad sa tao para sa prostitusyon o pornografiya ay hindi kabilang sa trafficking in persons. Uulitin ko po, ito po ay tama o mali. Ang pagbabayad sa tao para sa prostitusyon o pornografiya ay hindi kabilang sa trafficking in persons.
Maging kasama, kapatid at kaibigan, itigil ang karahasan.
Ayan, mas mabilis po. May nanalo na po sa ating question number 2. Ang tamang sagot ay false o mali. Isang form of trafficking na rin po ang pagbabayad sa isang tao na prostituted o pagbabayad sa kanya na gumawa ng pornographic activities. Alright po, moving on to question number 3. Ayan, mukhang nagigising na ang ating mga online viewers. Question number 3. Ano ang action hotline para sa mga kaso ng trafficking in persons? Multiple choice. A, 1343, B, 11313, and C, 9262. So ano po ang action hotline para sa mga kaso ng trafficking in persons? So ito po ang numerong maaaring tawagan kung may nalalaman po tayong kaso ng trafficking in persons.
Sila'y taong tulad mong may dangal at karapatan.
Alright, we got a winner. The correct answer is letter A. Nako, kung nanonood kayo sa mga nakaraang webinars natin, alam na ninyo yan. So 1343 po ang action line para sa trafficking cases. Ano naman po yung letter B? 11313. Yun po ay ang ating Safe Spaces Act. At ano naman po yung ating 9262? Yun naman po ang ating Republic Act 9262 or ang Anti-Vowsy Act. Okay po, moving on to question number 4. Tama o mali po ulit tayo. Ang pag-aalok ng kasal, peke man o hindi, upang makuha, mabili, maibenta ang biktima at isangkot sa prostitusyon, pornografiya, sexual harassment o pang-aalipin ay isang klase ng trafficking. Tama o mali po?
Mga kalalakihan, makisa, laban sa karahasan, maging kasama.
At may nanalo na? The correct answer is true or tama. Kaya mag-ingat po tayo sa mga love scams na nauuso na naman ngayon. So, yun po ay isang uri rin ng trafficking in person. So, ayan. Question number 5. Multiple choice. Ano ang ibig sabihin ng ayakat? Letter A, Inter-Agency Council Against Trafficking in Persons. Letter B, Inter-Agency Committee Against Trafficking in Persons. Or letter C, Inter-Agency Council Against Trafficked Persons. Ayan po, may nanalo na sa ating question number 5. Ang tamang sagot po ay letter A. Ang ayakat o Inter-Agency Council Against Trafficking in Persons ang nangunguna sa pag-formulate ng comprehensive and integrated programs para labanan ang problema ng trafficking in person sa bansa. Question number 6. Ayan, nakakalahati na po tayo. Tama o mali? Mas mabigat ang parusa sa trafficking in persons kung ang biktima ay mga bata.
Mga kalalakihan, makisa,
O mali po?
sa karahasan, maging
Sa trafficking in persons kung ang biktima ay mga bata.
ang karahasan sa kababaihan.
All right, we have a winner for question number 6. The correct answer is true o tama. Qualified trafficking na po ang tawag dito kapag mga bata ang biktima. Moving on to question number 7. Ang prescriptive period para sa mga insidente ng trafficking in person or TIP, bata ang biktima ay blank taon. A, 20 years, B, 15 years, or C, 8 years. So ano po ang prescriptive period para po makapagsampa ng kaso kung ang biktima po ay isang bata? Question number 7, ang tamang sagot po ay letter A or 20 years. Mas mabigat po talaga kapag qualified trafficking ang pinag-uusapan dahil po ito po ay mga bata. Kaya mas matagal din po ang ating prescriptive period o panahon para binibigay upang makapagsampa po ng kaso sa mga gumawa po ng trafficking in persons. Question number 8, tama o mali? Ang sinumang may personal na kaalaman tungkol sa insidente ng TIP or trafficking in person ay maaaring magsampa ng complaint. So pwede po ba o hindi? Tama o mali?
Kalalakihan, makisa, laban sa karahasan, maging kasama. Kapatid at kaibigan, wakasan ang karahasan sa kababaihan, milos, mga
Sige, go lang po sa ating mga online viewers.
laban sa karahasan, maging kasama. Kapatid at
Ayan, na-identify na po ng ating Facebook team. May nanalo na at ang sagot ay tama or true. So wag po kayong magdalawang isip na mag-report kung may napapansin or nakikita kayong mga insidente ng trafficking sa inyong lugar. Maaari niyo pong ipagbigay alam sa barangay o sa police, or alam naman po natin yung binigay na hotline kanina, no? Question number 9. Ang prescriptive period para sa mga insidente ng TIP na ginawa ng isang sindikato o sa pamamagitan ng malawakang operasyon ay blank taon. A. 20 years, B. 30 years, or C. 50 years.
Mga kalalakihan kumilos, mga kalalakihan.
Ilang taon po kaya kapag ang nagsagawa ay isang sindikato o sa pamamagitan ng malawakang operasyon? So 20 years po ba, 30 years, o 50 years?
Kumilos, mga kalalakihan, makisa.
Okay, we have a winner. And the correct answer for question number 9 is letter A. So, pareho po siya nung nauna nating question, no? Pag syndicate po, dapat carried out by a group of 3 or more persons ang krimen. Large scale naman po, kung committed against 3 or more persons individually or as a group. At para po sa ating panghuling question para sa ating first round of Energizer, tama o mali ang sino mang bibili o magbabayad ng serbisyo ng taong biktima ng trafficking ay maaari ring maparusahan sa ilalim ng Republic Act 9208 as amended by Republic Act number 10364.
Idadaan sa lakas ng boses at katawan, igalang mo't wag ituring na sila'y laruan. Sila'y taong tulad mong may dangal at karapatan.
For our final question, question number 10, may nanalo na at ang tamang sagot natin ay true or tama. Ayon po sa Section 11 ng ating batas, nagpo-promote po ng TIP ang knowingly or sadyang pakikinabang, financial or otherwise o paggamit sa labor o services ng isang traffic person. So ayan, mamaya po malalaman natin kung sino po ang mga nanalo, kaya tumutok lamang po tayo sa ating online talakayan. At dito po nagtatapos ang ating first round. Yan. Para malaman kung ikaw na nga ang nanalo ng exciting prizes from PCW, abangan lamang ang announcement mamaya. And thank you very much for everyone's active participation to our Energizer. For sure, after that fun game, gising na ang ating mga viewers at ready nang makinig sa ating next session para makasagot uli mamaya sa second round. Sana may na-pick up din kayong mga bagong kaalaman sa ating mini quiz dahil lahat yan ay mapag-uusapan natin ngayong hapon kasama ang ating susunod na guest speaker. To start our online talakayan, Human Hindi Laruan, Laws on Trafficking in Persons, silipin muna natin kung ano nga ba ang sitwasyon ng TIP sa ating bansa, lalo na ngayong may pandemic. Our first session is titled Modern Day Slavery During COVID-19, Challenges, Priorities, and Perspectives. This will present a brief situationer of TIP in the Philippines and the corresponding inter-agency initiatives implemented during the pandemic. At para ibahagi sa ating lahat ng yan, let us all welcome our resource speaker for this afternoon, si Atty. Maria Yvette Tamayo Coronel, ang Deputy Executive Director ng Inter-Agency Council Against Trafficking in Persons. Si Atty. Yvette ay isang state prosecutor and currently designated as the Deputy Executive Director for Legal ng IACAT Secretariat. She joined the Department of Justice in 2012 and became deeply involved in the IACAT Secretariat's strategic management and special operations. Prior to joining government service, Attorney Tamayo Coronel was in private law practice, handling criminal and civil litigation. A graduate of UP Manila and UST, our speaker is also engaged in advocacy work for the IACAT and contributes actively in policymaking and crafting counter-trafficking measures in the Philippines. Everyone, let's welcome our resource person this afternoon. Magandang hapon po and welcome sa ating online talakayan, Attorney Yvette.
Hello everyone, I'm Yvette Coronel from the Department of Justice, Inter-Agency Council Against Trafficking, and for this session, I will be sharing the international and national situationer on trafficking in persons. So when we talk about trafficking, one of the main sources of trafficking in persons situationer, data or information is the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime Global Report on Trafficking in Persons, which they put out every 2 years. So the latest one is the 2018 Global Report on Trafficking in Persons. This report showed that through the years, more victims are currently being detected and there are more convictions globally. So from 2003 to 2016, you see a steady increase in the numbers of detected trafficking victims and conviction rate. As in the Philippines, most victims detected are females at 49%, with 21% male victims detected. There are also 23% victims that are girls detected, and then 7% for boys. But what is alarming is the number of the minor victims that are also detected. So if you add the number of victims that are girls and boys, which is 23 and 7, you get a really high number of 30% minor victims. As in terms of form, trafficking for sexual exploitation continues to be the main form detected. So 59% is mainly for trafficking for sex exploitation, while only 30% for trafficking for forced labor. And then about 7% for trafficking for other purposes, such as organ trafficking. In terms of victim profiles and where they are detected in the form of exploitation, so as you can see, a lot of countries have sexual exploitation as the main form detected. It's what's the main form that is found in North America, South Americas, and the Central Americas, as well as in the Europe area, Western and Southern Europe, and Central Europe, as well in the East Asia and the Pacific. For forced labor, it's what's most detected in the Middle East, East Africa, Southern Africa, and West Africa, while begging in other forms for North Africa. In terms of flow, still the long distance flows for trafficking is still towards the richest countries. So as you can see in the Philippines, most of the victims that we have detected are onward or bound for the richer countries such as the US, UAE, and the countries in Europe. Most victims are now being detected in their own countries and regions. So this is one of the more surprising findings that the report put out, is that 58% of victims are now being detected within their own borders. So either the countries are currently implementing better detection tools, or that there's more domestic trafficking also being detected as well. Okay, so this is the trend of detection of domestic victims having increased over the last decade from 2010. So there's a steady increase, or there's a trend of rise in the number of detected domestic victims, or the ones that are detected within their own country's borders. Apart from the detected numbers, the report also put out that there is a hidden figure for trafficking. So this is the number of trafficking victims, or the number of trafficking incidences that takes place but is not necessarily detected. So they found out through a pilot study in Europe that using a multiple system estimate approach, trafficking for forced labor and trafficking of underage girls is highly underdetected. And we see this trend also in the Philippines. There is a strong evidence to show that forced labor in the Philippines is underreported or underdetected. That's why our numbers show that that there is actually more sex exploitation for trafficking that is happening. So in the Philippines, we are mainly a source country and a destination country, as well as a transit point for trafficking victims. It makes sense that we are a source country because we are one of the top global sources for for workers. We export them in huge numbers. We are a source country for migrant workers. We are also a destination country for some trafficking victims. We've detected foreign victims that have transited or that have been trafficked to the Philippines. And we saw a rise in that in the recent increase in the number of POGOs in the country. There was an influx of trafficking victims for sex exploitation during that period. We are also a transit point for trafficking victims given our geographical location. Most of the victims come here and as a jump-off point to their final destination or their intended country. And as with the global numbers, the majority of trafficked persons in the country are women and children. And that is why our law itself mentions these two vulnerable populations and ensures that the protective mantle of the law is really focused on women and children. For the routes for human trafficking, it takes place usually through the airports, through the formal channels. We have a lot of international airports in the country, and this is where we usually detect the trafficking situations. What they do is, if they want to go to their country of destination, they rarely take a direct flight. Usually they go through another country, let's say in Kuala Lumpur or Singapore, and then eventually to their intended destination. And that's why they also hide their visas and other working papers and say that they are just tourists in the ASEAN countries that they that is the jump-off point for their final destination. They can also go through Hong Kong and then through China or through Bangkok as well. So this is the Zamboanga backdoor exit, another unknown backdoor exit. Victims may go to Sandakan, Malaysia through Bonggao, Tawi-Tawi, or through Cebu and then to Lahad-Datu, Malaysia. Another detected backdoor exit is through Palawan. They take a direct flight to Puerto Princesa and then travel by land to Brooks Point and then by boat to Mapun and then Sandakan or Turtle Islands. Or they go by land through Balabac Port and then take by boat to Sandakan. So trafficking in persons actually takes place in many forms. It has many dimensions. That's why it's very a complicated and a highly complex type of crime. It can either be through sexual exploitation, prostitution, pornography, or cybersex and sex tourism. We also saw a rise in online sexual exploitation of children through the years. Trafficking can be for forced labor or slavery, debt bondage, involuntary servitude, child soldiers, and organ trafficking. So all of these forms and dimensions are covered and covered by our anti-trafficking in persons law. For victim profiles, a lot of victims have been detected through the years, but the most number of victims detected are women and children. There are also internally displaced persons or those coming from, let's say, armed conflict areas or from disaster areas. undocumented migrants, indigenous peoples, domestic workers, seafarers, agricultural workers, persons with low educational attainment, the LGBT sector, and persons with disabilities. So the commonality from all of these victims' profiles is that they have an inherent vulnerability that the traffickers take advantage of. What are these vulnerabilities? Can either be poverty, lack of education, unemployment, limited or lack of access to protective information and basic services, a culture of migration and existing migration networks, increased vulnerabilities brought about by natural disasters and armed conflict, as well as border porosity. So all of these can affect or influence the interplay of the vulnerabilities for victims, which the traffickers really play on or take advantage of. So, in response to this, the Philippine government enacted the Anti-Trafficking in Persons Law in 2003, pursuant to the United Nations Convention Against Transnational Organized Crime, and the Palermo Protocol, which is the protocol to prevent, suppress, and punish trafficking in persons, especially women and children. We patterned our law after this international convention, and our definition follows the definition as well of the Palermo Protocol, which has three elements in order for an act or for an incident to become trafficking in persons, and there must be acts, means, or purpose. These three elements will be discussed in detail in another session later. So this is what I'm talking about in terms of legislation. In 2003, we enacted the Anti-Trafficking in Persons Act shortly after signing in the Palermo Protocol Convention and the UNTOC Convention. And then in 2013, we expanded the 2003 law through RA 10364. So we now have these two laws, and we have the expanded act, which was effective in March 2013. So under this law, the Inter-Agency Council Against Trafficking was created. It's composed of the Department of Justice as the chairperson and the DSWD as the co-chair. And then in the second tier, you have there the regular member agencies. So DFA, DOLE, POEA, PNP, DFA, PCW, DILG, PCTC, and CFO. For the second tier, you have there the other government agencies that are not regular member agencies but still have a mandate to implement anti-trafficking programs under the law. We also have three non-government organization representatives, a very good addition in our law, emphasizing partnerships. So we have three sectoral representatives representing the women, children, and overseas Filipino sector. So for this year, we have the women representative through the CATWAP, or the Coalition Against Trafficking of Women in the Asia and the Pacific, the International Justice Mission for the Children's Sector, and the Blas Ople Policy Center and Training Institute for the Overseas Filipino Workers Sector. Okay, we implement the law through strategic action plans, and so far we've had 3 strat plans for trafficking from 2004 to 2010, and then again 2012 to 2016, and then 2017 to 2022. So we are now in the 3rd strat plan, which is due to end in 2022. And the National Strategic Action Plan follows the 3 P's paradigm under the Palermo Protocol, which is the prevention, protection, and prosecution approach. And as well, we have added a 4th P to tie it all together, which is partnership. So in terms of accomplishments, Under the Strat Plan, we have increased the number of anti-trafficking hotlines to encourage reporting of trafficking incidences. So we have the National Hotline, which is the 1343 Action Line. We also have an End OSEC hotline to report particularly OSEC incidences. And there will also be a launch of an international reporting hotline or internet-based reporting for OSEC cases. We've also maintained and improved and sustained the involvement of local government units through implementation of modules on anti-trafficking for local ordinances for local government units. We've also intensified the monitoring of the local committees on anti-trafficking persons, or the LCAT-VAUCIs, in partnership with the DILG, as well as the other local mechanisms like the BCPC and the VAU desk. We've also increased our engagement online and through various technology and digital platforms. So we have a website and a Facebook page that is up to date with the latest anti-trafficking in persons news and other activities that are being implemented by partner agencies. We have also undertaken intensive capacity buildings of frontline workers, service providers, law enforcement officers, and prosecutors and judges. So the whole criminal justice system was capacitated in order to understand better the Anti-Trafficking in Persons Act. So since 2012, the IACAT has conducted a total of about 1,000 trainings, which were attended by a total of 75,000 participants. So various trainings on different topics were undertaken. Recently, we've begun training on cybercrime and electronic evidence, as well as prosecuting OSEC cases, and multidisciplinary training for handling OSAIC victims, or online sexual abuse and exploitation of children victims. Other significant accomplishments on protection is the continued implementation of the Recovery and Reintegration Program for Trafficked Persons, or the RRPTP. We have also established the Inter-Agency Council Against Trafficking Tips Center, or the Tahanan ng Inyong Pag-asa, a dedicated shelter for trafficking victims located in Mandaluyong. Other accomplishments are the continuous upgrading of the residential care facilities for victim survivors, as well as the crafting of a compensation guidelines for OSAIC victim survivors. For prosecution and law enforcement, there are several accomplishments as well, such as the establishment of the PICAC, or the Philippine Internet Crimes Against Children Center, which is made up of the NBI ATRAD and the PNP WCPC, as well as with the support of IGM, the UK National Crime Agency, and the Australian Embassy. We have also issued the plea bargaining advisory in 2019, and the continuous advocacy for the use of videotaped in-depth interviews, or the VD kits, and the implementation of the Victim Witness Coordinator program. Other significant accomplishments on partnership and networking are the Child Protection Compact Partnership, which is an international agreement signed between the government of the Philippines and the government of the United States, as well as the ongoing programs and projects with the ASEAN-Australia Counter-Trafficking Program, or the ASEAN Act. We also have the Manila International Dialogue, a yearly program wherein foreign missions and other entities in the Philippines that are involved in anti-trafficking take part in meaningful dialogue on policies directed towards improving the response to trafficking. We have also engaged with the Asia-Pacific Financial Coalition Against Child Pornography and concluded a Memorandum of Understanding in 2019 with the UAE on cooperation in combating human trafficking. We also have ongoing commitment from non-IACAT members and strong support from the civil society. All these efforts contributed to the Philippines having reached the Tier 1 ranking in the U.S. State Department Trafficking in Persons Report in 2016. So for 5 years now, we have maintained such ranking. In June of 2020 this year, we have maintained the said ranking, and we are still one of the only Southeast Asian countries to be in the Tier 1 ranking. This year, Singapore is also ranked as Tier 1. So in terms of convictions, as you can see from this graph or table, that there has been a steady increase as well in the number of convictions in the Philippines. So from 61 in 2017, it jumped to 119 in 2018, or a 95% increase in the number of convictions. And so to date, as of June 2019, we already have about 489 convictions with 498 persons convicted. 19 of these persons convicted are involving foreign offenders or foreigners. And sadly, of all these convictions, 80% are composed of child trafficking cases or involving child trafficking. So that is, in essence, in a nutshell, is the international and national situation for trafficking. These are our contact details. If you wish to know more, you can email us at secretariat@iacat.gov.ph. You can also visit our website at iacat.gov.ph and our Facebook page, iacat at Facebook. Thank you so much for your kind attention.
Thank you, Attorney Yvette, for that thorough discussion. Malaking tulong po ang mga programang ito na inyong naibahagi para matuldukan na nga ang walang habas na pag-exploit sa ating mga kababayan, both here and abroad. Maaasahan po ninyo ang support ng Philippine Commission on Women sa pagprotekta sa karapatan ng mga kababaihan laban sa human trafficking. At dahil napaka-informative ng ating session ngayon, I'm sure na marami rin kayong questions, kayong mga kasama natin sa Facebook Live. So if you have questions related to the presentation of Attorney Yvette, pwede po ninyong i-comment dito sa ating live stream at susubukan po natin yung sagutin mamaya sa ating open forum. Ngayon naman po, dadako tayo sa second session, which is all about the expanded Anti-Trafficking in Persons Act or Republic Act 10364. Kanina, ipinakita na sa atin ni Attorney Yvette kung ano nga ba ang lagay ng TIP sa ating bansa at bakit talamak pa rin ang operasyon nito sa loob at labas ng Pilipinas. So to give us a better understanding of the law and the mechanisms behind the government's anti-trafficking in persons response, kasama din po natin ngayong hapon si Assistant State Prosecutor Karla T. Cabel of the Department of Justice for our next session. Si Attorney Karla ay isang Master's in National Security Administration Scholar sa National Defense College of the Philippines at member din siya ng DOJ Task Force in Anti-Trafficking in Persons. Isa siyang certified Interpol instructor at alumna ng iba't ibang international leadership programs at training courses sa USA, Japan, Bangkok, Sweden, Switzerland at Zambia. Nagsulat din siya ng studies on developing strategic security policies to address terrorism and child trafficking cases in the Zamboanga siege at training manuals for collaboration, investigation, and prosecution of terrorism-related cases. Everyone, i-welcome po natin sa ating online talakayan si Attorney Karla.
Can you hear me, ma'am? Good afternoon.
Now,
Hi, can you hear me?
yes, we could hear you, ma'am.
Great, great. Thank you for introducing me, Ma'am Becca. So after the situationer, may I have the honor to share with you the basic concepts of anti-human trafficking in the Philippines. Now, experience dictates to us that in times of crisis, the human trafficking cases suddenly go up. Well, according to the UNODC, this is because the human traffickers take advantage of those impoverished, those isolated, and those who are weakened because of their circumstances, such as civil wars, disasters. And guess what? The Philippines is not immune to that. In the Philippines, we've suffered lots of super typhoons, the COVID pandemics, natural disasters like the eruption of the Taal. And because of this, people lost jobs. A lot of infrastructures got destroyed. Businesses went down. And this created the perfect platforms for traffickers. They saw this as a chance to take advantage of the situation. In fact, as the pandemic and the disasters, we've seen news about parents selling their children online, streaming videos of minors in compromising situations to their foreign patrons through the internet. Women being offered to provide sexual services, not in clubs, but in apartels and sometimes spas. You see, human trafficking can happen right under our noses without us knowing. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is the goal of our discussion today. The goal is to have an overview of what is the anti-human trafficking law in the Philippines. Now, to go to that goal, it is the intention that in this 25-minute talk, we'll be able to go through the basic of what is 9208 as amended by 10364, as well as knowing the elements of human trafficking, because this is a special law and there are crucial elements that we should know and find out. Now, moving forward, let's go to objective 1. The most current law governing trafficking in persons is the expanded Anti-Trafficking Persons Act of 2012, or RA 10364, which amends the old trafficking law of 2003. The expanded Trafficking Act was signed on February 6, 2013. It was published on February 13, 2013, and as per law, 15 days thereafter, it was effective March 2, 2013. Now, let's go to the elements. Human trafficking, being a special law, has 3 crucial elements. We should watch out for the acts, the means, and the purpose. Let's go to them one by one. When we talk about acts, this means the recruitment, obtaining, hiring, providing, offering, transportation, transfer, maintaining, harboring, receipt of persons or a child. Under what circumstances? The law states as follows. When you recruit, when you obtain, when you hire under the pretext of domestic, overseas employment, training, or apprenticeship. Example, a case where a young lady in Metro Manila, thinking that she would want to be a famous dancer one day, she wanted to go on a apprenticeship program in Pampanga. Just to find out in Pampanga, she was trafficked as a GRO in a bar. Another, for domestic employment, a woman in the Visayas region wanting to have a job as a house help was transported to Manila just to find out that she was offered as a prostitute. Next, introducing matching for profit, for money profit, or any person, Filipino to a foreigner for marriage. Another case. Filipinas were matched to foreigners, Koreans in this case, for marriage, just to find out that when this Filipina was brought to Korea, she was turned into a sex slave. Another, to offer or contract marriage. So on the first example, the one being penalized are those matchmakers. Kaya mag-ingat po tayo ha, yung mga bridge na yan, mamaya trafficking na pala yan. But in this next enumeration, what is being punished is the acts of marriage by the foreigner with the intention of exploiting this Filipina. Next, to undertake or organize tours and travel plans for trafficking. When you encourage your friends to come to the Philippines just to visit the red light districts of Metro Manila, be careful. You might be prosecuted under this law. Moving forward, another act is to maintain or hire a person for prostitution or pornography. When you hire a person to provide sexual services or lascivious conduct for a fee or pornography, when you make a representation through the internet or any publication of sexual intercourse, whether real or not, or exposure of certain body parts for purposes of sex. So that is pornography. Next, to adopt with or without consideration for exploitative purpose or to facilitate trafficking. Another real case, a German couple in Mindanao with under the guise of giving help to the poor people of the barangay, the children of the barangay. They would give food and money, but they had the intention of making these kids engage in cyber porn. Organ trafficking is another form of trafficking where you urge people to sell their kidneys without undergoing the legal processes under the law. Next, engage children in armed conflict. When you offer kids, when you harbor them, transport them to become child warriors, that is human trafficking. Forced labor, slavery, debt, bondage, involuntary servitude. Forced labor, example, we have these fishermen down south who were recruited to work as fishermen in Malaysia. But when they got to Malaysia, they were put in one place, they were not fed, and they were not given their salaries. Slavery, when you show that you own your when you show that you own your maid, your kasambahay, and you execute full dominion over them, that might be human trafficking. That bondage, a case where a farmer borrows money from his landlord, but this farmer was not able to pay because of the onslaught of the bagyo. And because of that, his crops were destroyed. And then the farmer gives his son to the landlord to pay his debt, but without any arrangement on how the son will be paying the debt. That is debt bondage. Involuntary servitude, which often happens to our OFWs. So under the guise of work abroad, they would go overseas, and then when abroad, when they're in the foreign country, their employers would get their passports, would put them in a room, not allowing them to go out, not feeding them properly. And if they would want to go out, they will be threatened that they will be that they will go to jail because because they do not have their passports, or that their work visas are expired. All right. Next, the buying or selling of a child for any consideration for slavery, prostitution, pornography, drug trafficking, illegal activities, or to engage in work which are harmful to health, safety, or morals. If you engage a child to become a drug courier, to organize or direct persons to commit trafficking. So these are the acts. Now let's go to the means. Now, in human trafficking, you do not just recruit, obtain, hire, etc. You also have to prove that these acts were committed through threat, use of force, coercion, abduction, fraud, or deception, abuse of power position, taking advantage of the vulnerability of a person. How? This is the beauty of human trafficking. This law recognizes that a person who is a victim of trafficking was exploited because of his or her vulnerabilities. That means a person who has nothing to eat on the table, a mother at that, will willingly sacrifice herself and to be a victim of human traffickers just to have money to put food on the table for the family. Because generally, that's how a woman or a mother thinks. Next, giving benefits to get the consent or control over another, like luring the person with gifts and money. But we should take note that you do not look for the means that the person was coerced, was forced, if the victim or the actions were done against a child. Why? Because under the law, the children are unable to give their consent. And what is a child under our law? Under the Philippine laws, a child is a person who's below 18 years of age or someone who is unable to take care of himself or herself because of mental or physical abilities. So means is irrelevant at that point if the victim is a child. Now let's go to the purpose, ladies and gentlemen. The purpose of human trafficking is always for exploitative reasons, meaning you recruited, you obtained, you hired the person through force, through intimidation for the purpose of sex trafficking, which includes pornography and prostitution, forced labor, which includes debt bondage, slavery, involuntary servitude. You have organ trafficking or the use of children for armed conflict or illegal activities. All right. So we were able to discuss the acts, the means, and the purpose. If you have all these three, then you have human trafficking. But remember, if the victim is a child, you only have to show the act's purpose for you to have human trafficking. You do not need to prove the means anymore. What are the features, other features of the anti-human trafficking law in the Philippines? First is extraterritoriality jurisdiction, meaning even if the crime of human trafficking was committed abroad outside the country, that person can still be prosecuted for human trafficking under the following conditions. First is that if the offender is a Filipino citizen, second, he's a resident of the Philippines, and the third one, if the crime is committed against a Filipino. Next, legal protection of victims. They are not prosecuted. There are no retaliatory suits and irrelevance of past behavior or reputation. This means that the person's, whatever the past of the victim is, whether she was a prostitute before or his or her sexual preference, cannot be taken against that person if he's a victim of trafficking. So it cannot be taken as a defense. And moreover, the consent of the person in human trafficking is irrelevant. Why is that? Because this law recognizes that the trafficker took advantage of the vulnerability, whether it's economic vulnerability or other vulnerabilities such as lack of education. Okay, moving forward, there's also a prohibition against urging victims to abandon cases, meaning the lawyers, the judges, the prosecutors, the law enforcers, the policemen, and the NBI should not encourage victims to drop their cases in human trafficking. Because if they do so, they can be prosecuted under the law for acts promoting trafficking. And trafficking, if it is qualified, meaning if it is committed against a child or committed in large scale, wherein there are 3 or more offenders, or large scale 3 or more victims, syndicated if there are 3 or more offenders, this prescribes in 20 years. And other infractions under the law will prescribe in 10 years. And there's also a confidentiality provision here. You cannot gossip. You cannot gossip about victims of trafficking. Otherwise, you will be prosecuted under this law. All right. So to summarize, We were able to talk about RA 9208 as amended, and we were able to browse through the important elements of human trafficking. So let me end my short discussion of the basics of human trafficking by quoting Mr. William Wilberforce. He said, "You may choose to look the other way, but you can never say again that you did not know." So, with this discussion, it is my fervent hope that we will not say we did not know. Thank you very much for listening. Ma'am Becca?
Thank you very much, Attorney Karla. So important po yun, no, that now we are very much informed of the acts, the means, the purpose that constitute trafficking in person. So malawak na po talaga ang sakop ng ating Expanded Anti-Trafficking in Persons Act at dapat ding maipaalam pa ito sa mas marami pang tao para mas marami pa rin tayong naglo-look out sa possible signs of trafficking sa ating mga lugar. Napakaseryoso po ng mga naging usapan natin sa bawat episode ng Online Talakayan, and we hope na nakakuha po tayo ng bagong kaalaman at kamumulatan tungkol sa violence against women at trafficking in persons. Maraming salamat po ulit sa inyong pagbabahagi, Attorney Karla at Attorney Yvette. Ayan, at dahil dyan, parang handang-handa na ang ating mga online viewers via Facebook na sumagot sa ating Energizer. So marami tayong natutunan sa mga presentations. So I hope that matatandaan natin to at makakasagot tayo to win our prizes. So Energizer, round 2 na po tayo. Uulitin ko po, lahat ng viewers ay pwedeng sumali basta nanonood kayo sa live stream ng PCW Facebook page. Para po sa mga kasisimula pa lang manood, uulitin po natin ang instructions para sa ating Energizer or ating mini quiz. So tumutok lang po tayo sa ating mga screen para sa mga lalabas na tanong. Hintaying lumabas ang ating marker sa comment section bago ipadala ang inyong sagot. So ganito po ang itsura ng marker natin. Meron pong nakalagay na answer to question number 1 or 2 here. Tapos meron pong arrow symbol. The first one to post the correct answer right below that marker will win. Ngayong second round, we will also have 10 questions and 10 winners. Isang beses lang po pwedeng manalo per participant. Each winner will receive a special package from PCW, pero dapat po ay nakabase kayo sa Pilipinas at ang inyong mailing address ay nandirito rin para maipadala namin ang inyong prize. Malalaman po ninyo ang winners mamaya sa huling bahagi ng ating programa. Okay po ba tayo? So kung okay po tayo, let's start! Question number 1. Anong taon na ipasa ang Anti-Trafficking in Persons Act o Republic Act No. 9208? A. 1999, B. 2003, C. 2005. So dalawa po yung mga batas na nabanggit kanina sa mga presentation. So ang tanong po natin, for question number 1, anong taon na ipasa ang Anti-Trafficking in Persons Act o Republic Act No. 9208? Ayan, may nanalo na po sa ating question number 1. Ang tamang sagot po ay letter B, 2003. Pinirmahan ni dating Pangulong Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo ang ating Anti-Trafficking in Persons Act noong 2003. Okay po. For question number 2, true or false? Ang mga biktima ng trafficking ay may karapatan na maisama sa Witness Protection and Benefits Program.
Let us bring all violence against women to an end.
True or false po tayo? Paunahan po tayong sumagot below the arrow symbol. Yan, nagbabalidate na ang ating Facebook team at may nanalo na po. The correct answer is true. May preferential entitlement po ang TIP victims sa ilalim ng Republic Act number 6981 o Witness Protection, Security, and Benefits Act. Yan. Sige po, gising-gising tayo. Question number 3. Bukod sa biktima, sino ang maaaring mag-report ng insidente ng trafficking? A. Asawa ng biktima. B. Mga kamag-anak ng biktima. C. Sino mang nakaalam ng pang-aabuso. Or D. All of the above.
Let us bring all violence against women to an end. Never harm nor hurt. Don't you ever scream at them. Never raise your
And sino po ang pwedeng mag-report ng insidente ng trafficking?
with respect and not objects of desire. They're people just like you.
Asawa po ba ng biktima, kamag-anak, kahit sinong may nalalaman tungkol sa pang-abuso, or D, all of the above? Yan, dami pong sumasagot.
Men move together.
Nanalo na po. Ang tamang sagot sa ating question number 3 ay letter D. Ayan. All of the above. Tulad po ng ating Anti-Violence Against Women and Their Children Act o RA 9262, ang TIP po ay pwedeng isumbong ng kahit na sinong may personal knowledge sa insidente. So letter D, all of the above. So we will move on to question number 4. Anong ahensya ng Pilipinas sa ibang bansa ang maaaring lapitan kung ikaw ay biktima ng international trafficking? Yan po, wala po tayong pagpipilian. I-type nyo lang po ang tamang sagot sa ating comment section. Aling pong ahensya ng gobyerno, ahensya ng Pilipinas sa ibang bansa ang maaaring lapitan kung ikaw ay biktima ng international trafficking?
Violence be our vow, be a brother, a partner and a friend. Let us bring all violence against women to an end. There's no need to give things that money can buy. Show the true love that is really felt inside. Gold and riches are not the only things we need. Love is something pure that is given for free. Men move together, move now.
Daw po, ayon sa ating Facebook team, ang sagot po sa question number 4 ay ang Philippine Embassy o Consulate na matatagpuan sa nasabing bansa. Pwede po kayong humingi ng tulong o mag-report sa ating mga embassies or consulate sa bansang inyong tinitirahan. No? Kung doon po naganap ang kaso ng trafficking in person. Yan. Mag-move on naman po tayo sa question number 5. True or false? Ang prostitution ay illegal sa Pilipinas.
Violence be our vow, be a brother, a partner and a friend. Let us bring all violence against women to an end. Never harm.
So legal po ba o illegal ang prostitusyon sa Pilipinas?
Raise your voice, nor force to cover them. Treat them with respect.
Or false?
Objects of desire, they're people just like you, with dignity and pride.
Ayan po, may nanalo na daw po sa ating question number 5. Ang tamang sagot po ay syempre, true. So hopefully po wala pong sumagot ng false. Illegal po ang prostitusyon, pero ang prostituted woman po ay hindi prosecuted. No? So yung act po ng prostitusyon ang illegal sa ating bansa. Question number 6. Kung ang Republic Act number 9208 ay naipasa noong 2003, anong taon naman naipasa ang Expanded Anti-Trafficking in Persons Act or Republic Act number 10364? A. 2005, B. 2010, and C. 2012.
Freedom, violence be our vow, be a brother, a partner and a friend. Let us bring all violence against women to an end. Move together, move now, let freedom, violence be our vow, be a brother, a partner and a friend. Let us bring all violence against women to an end.
And po, may nanalo na po sa ating question number 6. Ang tamang sagot po dito ay letter C, 2013. Ang ating Expanded Anti-Trafficking in Persons ay ginawa noong 2003. Ngunit ito po ay na-sign into law at naging effective naman noong 2013. So, nandoon po yan sa presentation ni Atty. Karla, no? So, tatandaan po natin isa 2003, naging effective, and the amendment po ay naging effective noong 2013. Question number 7, true or false? Hindi pwedeng i-report ang mga insidente ng trafficking sa barangay.
Men move, move together, move now, let freedom, violence be our vow, be a brother, a partner and a friend. Let us bring all violence against women to an end. Move together, move now, let freedom, violence be our vow, be a brother, a partner and a friend. Let us bring all violence against women to an end. Move, move together, move now, let freedom, violence be our vow. Be a brother, a partner and a friend. Let us bring all violence.
Okay po, nalo na ang question number 7. Ang tamang sagot po ay false. So tungkulin po ng ating mga barangay official na rumisponde sa trafficking in persons incident sa kanilang nasasakupan. So false po yun. So pwede pong i-report ang insidente ng trafficking sa ating mga barangay. Question number 8. Kasama dito ang mga tourist packages na may halong escort o sexual services na inihanda ng travel and tourism establishments o individuals. Ginagamit itong pangtangkilik ng mga turista. A. Sex tourism. B. Sex travel package. C. Sex workers.
Violence be our vow. Be a brother, a partner and a friend. Let us bring all violence against women to an end. There's no need to give things that money can buy.
May nanalo na po para sa ating question number 8. So ang tamang sagot po dyan ay letter A, sex tourism. Trafficking din po ang pag-engage sa escort o sexual services na ino-offer ng travel or tourism establishments. Question number 9. True or false? Kasama sa mga services para sa recovery, rehabilitation, at reintegration ng biktima, ang pagbibigay ng livelihood and skills training, medical or psychological services, at libreng legal assistance. True or false po? Kasama sa mga services para sa recovery, rehabilitation, at reintegration ng biktima, ang pagbibigay ng livelihood and skills training, medical or psychological services, at libreng legal assistance.
That is given for free. Men move together, move now. Let freedom from violence be our vow. Be a brother, a partner.
Nanalo na po sa ating question number 9. So ang tamang sagot ay true. So marami pong services ang pwedeng i-extend sa TIP victims para masiguro ang kanilang maayos na rehabilitation at reintegration sa ating lipunan. So lahat po ng mga nabanggit natin kanina ay kasama po sa mga serbisyo na maaaring na kailangan nating ibahagi sa kanila. At ito na po ang ating panghuling question sa ating Energizer. Question number 10. True or false? Ang pagbebenta ng bahagi o laman-loob ng tao ay isang uri rin ng trafficking.
Raise your voice, nor forced to cover them. Treat them with respect and not objects of desire.
True or false po, ang pagbebenta ng bahagi o lamang-loob ng tao ay isang klase rin ng trafficking. And we have our last winner for today na sumagot ng correct answer na true. Sabi nga natin, human, hindi laruan. Bawal po ang pagbebenta ng organs dahil ito po ay act of trafficking. Kasama rin po siya sa acts of trafficking. Yan. Okay po ba? Gising na gising po at buhay na buhay po ba ang ating mga Facebook viewers? That is already the second and final round of our Energizers. And we hope that you enjoyed it. Baka kayo na po ang nanalo kaya hintayin nyo na ang announcement of winners later. So maraming salamat po sa lahat ng tumutok at nakisagot sa ating mini quiz. With that, we move on to the next part of our program. So nalaman na natin ang basic provisions ng mga batas laban sa trafficking in persons. Ngayon naman, mag-focus tayo sa mga particular na grupo, ang women fisher folks and women and girls at risk of trafficking. At para ibahagi sa atin ang resulta ng kanilang focus group discussions, kasama ang mga babae na mangingisda, makakasama na po natin si Attorney Chrissy Shafina Twyla A. Rubin mula sa Commission on Human Rights. Si Attorney Twyla ang OIC ng Center for Gender Equality and Women's Rights ng CHR. So magandang hapon and welcome sa ating online talakayan, Attorney Twy.
Welcome. I'm happy to be here, Becca. Salamat sa pag-imbita at salamat sa Philippine Commission on Women at palaging naiimbitahan ang CHR sa mga pag-uusap patungkol sa pagtigil at pag-prevent ng all forms of violence against women. Binabati din natin ang mga nanonood ngayon sa Facebook. Ngayon po ang huling araw ng ating 18 Days of Activism to End Violence Against Women at ang araw na ito ay partikular na tumututok sa pagpigil at pag-end sa lahat ng forma ng trafficking against persons. So, nabanggit na ni Becca na ako po ay taga-CHR at ang aming ahensya ay sa panahon ng pandemic ay hindi tumitigil sa aming mandato. So, kami din po ay natalagang gender umbod under Magna Carta of Women. So, next slide. Maipapakita sa next slide na even in the time of pandemic, ang CHR ay tumutugon sa mga iba't ibang issue ng patungkol sa karapatang pantao, kasama na dito ang issue ng karahasan. At today, ibabahagi namin sa inyo ang initial na resulta na naging mga focus group discussion na ginawa ng CHR kasama ang mga kababaihang mangingisda. At ipapaliwanag din natin kung bakit natin natutukan ang sektor ng mga kababaihang na mangingisda, at kanina narinig natin sa mga naunang speakers na hindi may link ang kahirapan sa nangyayaring karahasan at nangyayaring trafficking in person sa mahihirap na komunidad. Ang kahirapan na isang vulnerability na naglilid sa mga maraming mga pamilya or maraming mga babae at batang babae na nagiging biktima sila sa trafficking. Kung kaya isa ito sa proyekto na natutukan ng CHR. So, maikli lamang na pagbahagi ng kung ano yung aming mandato as CHR during the time of pandemic. So the next slide, mapapakita na during the pandemic, tuloy pa rin yung aming human rights protection work. Ibig sabihin, nagbibigay kami ng legal assistance, nagkakaroon kami ng online na reporting ng gender-based violence through our e-lawyering and e-report sa Gender Umbud Portal. Tuloy pa rin yung aming human rights advocacy and promotion, pag-issue ng statement kung may mainit na issue patungkol sa karapatang pantao, kasama na dito yung karahasan, and then patuloy din yung aming human rights policy advocacy work. Yung aming pagsasaliksik or yung aming situationer of women fisher folks and women and girls at risk of trafficking ay napapaloob sa aming human rights policy work. Importante kasi na yung ating mga pulisiya ay naitatapat din natin kung ano yung mga existing policies and laws na itatapat din natin sa kung ano naman yung nararanasan ng mga kababaihan sa komunidad, kung ang mga batas ba na dapat nagpoprotekta sa kanila ay tunay na nakakapagbigay ng proteksyon, lalo na sa panahon ngayon na may pandemya. At na-mention na rin kanina na talagang sa panahon ng krisis, umiigting yung vulnerabilities ng kababaihan, batang babae sa iba't ibang forma ng karahasan. Kasama na dito yung vulnerabilities sa trafficking. So sa next slide, isang issue na highlight namin sa CHR noong panahon ng pandemic ay kinakailangan natin maipakita ano yung disproportionate impact ng COVID-19 crisis sa mga kababaihang vulnerable na even before the pandemic. At isa sa sektor na aming nakita na dapat na matutukan ay yung mga kababaihan sa kanayunan. Marami yung mga uri ng kababaihan sa kanayunan. Mayroon tayong mga farmers at meron din tayong mga fisher folks. So yung panaliksik na aming napili ay patungkol sa mga kababaihang madalas ay hindi natin nakukumusta. Kumusta nga ba sila sa panahon ng pandemic? May link nga ba yung kahirapan at yung situation nila during pandemic dun sa issue ng karahasan at pananatili at patuloy na trafficking in person? So yun yung aming tinutukan dito sa aming situationer on women fisher folks. So ano yung aming objectives nung ginawa namin yung pagsasaliksik na ito or FGDs? Sa next slide, may ipapakita natin na una, gusto naming makita or maging visible yung mga issue ng mga women fisher folks. Madalas kasi pag sinasabing fisher folks, ang naiisip lalaking mangingisda, yung sumasampa sa barko. Pero under Magna Carta of Women, ang definition ng fisher folks or women fisher folks ay hindi lamang yung sumasakay sa barko at nangingisda. In fact, ito ay isang mas malawak na definisyon. Ito ay kasama yung mga kababaihan. Ang women fisher folks ay kasama dito ang kababaihang directly or indirectly engaged in taking, culturing or processing fishery or aquatic resources. So in fact, yung nagtitinda, yung fish vendors, yung sumasalubong sa bangga, yung mga naghahabi ng mga net or yung nag-aayos ng net kung ito ay nasira, sila ay kabahagi ng women fisher folks at fisher folks community. At bakit importante yung recognition na ito? Kasi kung hindi na-recognize na ang kababaihang hindi naman nangingisda pero parte sa iba't ibang bahagi ng pag-prepare or pagkuha ng isda at pagbibenta nito sa market, hindi nila natatamasa yung mga benepisyo na dapat na ibibigay sa sektor. Dahil nga pag iniisip na fisher folks community, madalas nakikita yung kalalakihan, nagiging invisible yung kababaihan. At yung lack of recognition na ito, yung lack of recognition na sila ay mangingisda or parte ng mga mangingisda, ito ay nagdudulot or nagre-resulta ng hindi sila nakaka-access ng ayuda, hindi nakaka-access ng resources, wala silang access to information na dapat makakatulong sa kanila sa empowerment at makapagpabuti ng kanilang kalagayan. So kaya namin tinutukan yung sitwasyon ng women fisher folks. So sa next slide, may papakita kung ano yung aming naging ano yung sitwasyon ng mga women fisher folks sa Pilipinas. No? Alam namin nagkaroon ng konting baseline study ang CHR at nakita namin no yung fisher folks as a sector ay among the most poorest, no? Ang fisher folks as a whole, kasama sila sa mga pinakamahirap na basihang sektor sa lipunan. At mas mahirap pa yung kalagayan ng mga kababaihang fisher folks dahil nga may issue ng hindi sila recognized as fisher folk. So sinasabi na invisible yung kanilang ginagawa. Ginagawa nila yung pangangala, for example, yung pag-aayos ng mga net o yung pagtitinda sa merkado, sa palengke, pero hindi ito nakikita na parte ng gawain ng isang fisher folk. So hindi nabibigyan ng value, hindi sila din ay underrepresented pag nagkakaroon ng planning strategy for the sector. At dahil hindi nga kinikilala yung kanilang trabaho. Meron ding issue ng multiple burden. Alam natin na sa lipunan ang mga kababaihan ay madalas na atasan sa trabaho sa bahay. So hindi lang ginagawa ng mga women fisher folks yung trabaho sa bahay, ginagampanan din nila yung kanilang pagiging fisher folks. So nagre-resulta ito sa multiple burden. And as I said kanina, merong disenfranchisement in terms of benefits na dapat ay na-accord sa kanila. May iba hindi nakaka-access ng social protection, bagamat ang iba ay members ng 4Ps, yung iba naman ay hindi sila member sa listahan, yung iba naman din ay member yung husbands nila sa listahan ng BIFAR or Bureau of Fisheries, pero sila mismo as women fisher folks, dahil kabahagi sila sa pagbebenta ng mga nahuli ng kanilang husband, ay hindi sila kasama sa listahan ng BIFAR as fisher folks. At hindi rin sila, dahil hindi sila kasama sa listahan, nakaka-apekto ito sa benepisyo na pwede nilang ma-access sa gobyerno. So sa next slide, may papakita naman din natin, ito yung illustration, no, kung ano nga ba yung sitwasyon ng women fisher folks. Sinasabi, at ito ay mula sa isang pag-aaral, no, na underrepresented at yung women's work underpaid, mas mababa yung sahod kasi nga nakikita sila na hindi naman yan pangingisda yung ginagawa nila eh. Nag-aangkat lang sila ng isda mura sa mga nangingisda and then dinadala sa palengke at binibenta, when in fact that part ng ginagawa ng kababaihan ay malaking parte ito ng trabaho din sa small scale fishing, pero hindi madalas nare-recognize. So next slide will show yung ating objective sa pag-aaral. So bakit namin gustong malaman yung sitwasyon ng mga kababaihang fisher folks? Gusto naming malaman na magkaroon ng baseline kasi sa Magna Carta of Women may provision na dapat pinoprotektahan yung mga women fisher folks. Pero kung paano ito na-implement on the ground, o kung nakikilala ba talaga yung women fisher folks on the ground, gusto naming malaman kung na-implement ito. And then we also would want to know kung meron bang nararanasan na trafficking or karanasan ng other forms of gender-based violence yung mga kababaihang nakatira, nananatili sa fisher folks community at mga women fisher folks. And dahil panahon ng pandemic, gusto namin makita kung ano sila or paano sila naapektuhan ng pandemya. Ang pag-aaral na ito ay involved ang aming 16 regional offices. So next slide. 16 regional offices all over the country, sila yung pipili ng area na may fisher folks community sa kanilang lugar at sila din ay naatasan na makipag-partner sa community organization, kung pwede, fisher folks organization para makapag-conduct ng focus group discussion. Importante to dahil sabi nga, sino bang nakakaalam sa issue ng mga fisher folks kundi yung mga fisher folks mismo. And then yung FGDs din namin, naisama din namin yung separate na FGD, no? Separate na pagkikipag-usap or KII. Madalas din kasi kung hindi FGD, key informant interviews, doon naman sa duty bearer, sino naman yung dapat tumutugon sa issue ng mga fisher folks. Gaya ng BIFAR, Bureau of Fisheries, Department of Agriculture, PNP, pagdating sa karahasan, and MSWDO. Hindi pa naipasok lahat ng aming regional offices yung naging resulta ng pag-aaral, pero ito ay initial na pagbabahagi lamang at so ito ay nagka-cover lamang ng mga 5 regions na nakatapos na ng kanilang FGD at natapos na rin yung pagsumite ng report. So ito yung mga regions na nakapagbahagi na or naging parte ng ng aking ibabahagi na resulta ngayon. So next slide. Yan, nandun pa pala sa isang slide. So methodology lang, brief description ng methodology. Nag-identify kami ng community partner, researcher or CSO at the regional level. Nagkaroon kami ng KII and FGD. Binibigyan din namin ng communication and transportation allowance yung mga fisher folks para sila ay makapunta, makadalo sa aming mga event, lalo na kung ito ay ginagawa sa webinar or Zoom, or kung face-to-face naman para makapunta sila sa venue. Nag-provide din kami ng relief packs kasi kinikilala namin na maigting talaga yung kahirapan ngayon, lalo na sa sektor ng mga mangingisda, at kinakailangan nila ang ganung ayuda. And then may KII with duty bearers, and then may presentation ng results. So the next slide, maipapakita yung mga iba't ibang conduct ng KII, Zoom, at saka webinars ng aming regional offices. No? Sa next slide. Ito yung aming mga tanong. Ang mga tanong namin dun sa FGDs, ano yung papel mo sa pangingisda? Ano yung ginagawa mo? Gaano kahalaga yung tubig para sa inyo? Paano nyo ito pinapangalagaan? Anong papel ng babae at lalaki sa loob ng isang household na fisher folks? Nagtatanong din kami sa kanilang economic participation and recognition. Kinikilala ba sila bilang fisher folks ng BIFAR, ng ahensya ng gobyerno? Sila ba mismo kinikilala nila yung sarili nila as fisher folks? May access ba sila sa information ng resources, programs ng government, sa mga iba't ibang programa na dapat binibigay sa mga fisher folks community? May naranasan ba silang marginalization, stigma, or discrimination? May tanong din kami sa trafficking at gender-based violence na narinig, na witness, or alam nila na nangyayari sa kanilang komunidad. Ano yung gendered impact ng pandemic sa kanila? Ano yung impact ng pandemic bilang babae sa kanila, at ano yung kanilang rekomendasyon para sa gobyerno. So the next slide. Ito yung regions na ipe-present ko ngayon. So may region 1, 3, 4A, 7, and 11. Ito yung mga initial na nakapagbahagi na yung reports nila. Yung iba ay parating pa lamang at ipe-present muli namin ang results ng pag-aaral na ito sa Women's Month next year. So ito ay initial lamang na pagbabahagi. So next slide. Ito yung mga iisa-isahin ko lang mga ibang example kung paano nag-respond yung mga women fisher folks. So dito sa Aringay, La Union, may isang mangingisdang babae na nagsasabi na nagtitinda lang naman ako, ma'am, wala akong alam ganyan, ma'am, hindi ko po alam. So ang question dito ay, ano yung sa tingin mo, ikaw ba ay miyembro ng fisher folks community, at ano yung role na ginagampanan mo? Kinikilala ba kayo ng komunidad at ng gobyerno as fisher folks? So ang sagot na ito ay nagpapakita na ang babae mismo ay hindi niya alam na under the definition of the law, sila ay miyembro ng fisher folks community. So may malaking impact ito kung paano sila mag-access ng resources at paano din yung kanilang enjoyment ng rights na in fact dapat nandun sa batas at nai-enjoy nila. So itong sa Aringay, La Union, nagsasabi that 53% of the women they interviewed do not categorize themselves as member of fisher folks. But if you ask them to describe what they do, they actually fall within the definition of fisher folks. And they of course are not part of those who are listed. And then the second one, there's another who said that, no ma'am, only my husband and my child is on the list of BIFAR. So yung husband niya dito of course ay lalaki, yung anak niya ay lalaki, and nagpapakita din na meron tayong bias, no? Meron talagang pagtingin na ang fisher folks, ang kinoconsider na fisher folks sa community ay yung mga kalalakihan, at yung ginagawa ng babae ay hindi na consider as gawain ng isang mangingisda. So dun sa Aringay, La Union, nakita na 80% of women fisher folks ay wala sa list ng BIFAR or DA, and then sinabi din nila na hindi sila aware na sila ay membro ng fisher folks, and not that they are also not sure, and some they are also not sure that their husbands or sons are the list. So sa susunod na slide, patungkol pa rin ito sa roles, participation, at access to resources. Ang sinasabi dito, ito naman ay results from Pampanga, no, San Fernando. Ang sabi ng FGD dito, yung mga respondents agreed na since hindi sila member ng organization ng fisher folks, hindi sila nabigyan ng recognition, hindi rin sila naka-receive ng support mula sa gobyerno as part of the fisher folk sector. And then in another, Sinabi din nila na they have no knowledge of any benefits of being a woman fisher folk and has not received any assistance from the government. So malaking impact ito, yung non-recognition ng kababaihan mismo sa sarili nila bilang fisher folks at yung hindi rin pagre-recognize sa kanila sa agency ng government na dapat nagre-recognize at nag-a-address ng pangailangan nila. Kasi ito ay magdudulot of course dun sa kanilang kawalan ng access na resources, lalong nakaka-contribute dun sa kahirapan na currently na nararanasan na ng sektor. So next slide. Sa impact naman ng pandemic, naipakita na marami sa mga kababaihang fisher folks na apektuhan yung kanilang kita. Kahit nakapagpunta sa dagat yung kanilang mga husbands or children, hindi naman palagi na may nahuhuling isda. At kung mayroon mang nahuhuli dahil quarantine, hindi rin sila makakapagbenta. So in this case, ito sa Digo City, Region 12, it's not constant that fishing always catch fish. Sometimes wala talaga. Like now, my husband don't go fishing, zero. That is why we get sad and I do sideline with my boss or nagsa-strategize na lang na coping mechanisms ng kababaihan. Ito naman ay karanasan ng isang taga-Talisay, Cebu. Senior citizen siya na fish vendor. Nakaranas daw siya ng financial difficulty dahil dumoble yung worries niya in terms of money. Sa panahon ng pandemic, hindi siya makapagbenta ng kanyang produkto sa palengke and yung customers niya mismo ay wala na ring pambili. So talagang naglulugmok, no? At maraming mga accounts na ganito na yung mga kababaihan na mostly informal workers naman talaga as belonging to the women fisher folk sector ay lalong nalulugmok sa kahirapan. And so next slide next slide. Yan. Livelihood nila dahil sa strict quarantine ay apektado, hindi sila allowed mag-fish yung husbands dahil may time nun na hindi sila allowed, and they're also not allowed to sell. They shared that sometimes they were not able to eat regularly. So may link din na hindi sila makapag-practice ng kanilang livelihood, wala silang access sa dagat, hindi rin sila nakakakain or merong gutom, no, dahil sa kahirapan. Sabi din ng iba, although they receive assistance from the government, they still keep working hard to earn a living dahil yung income or nakukuha nila ay hindi naman sapat to cover their daily needs. Marami din sa mga respondents nagsasabi that in a positive note, dahil sa pandemic na they were able to spend more time with their family, napansin din nila na some of their husbands ay nagtitake up na rin ng more household responsibility. Ito naman ay from Mayimpi, San Fernando. So the next slide I think will show us yung ano yung mga, ito is one example of an experience of a fisher woman from Cebu. Lumabas yung husband niya from 8 to 2 p.m. para lang mangisda pero wala silang nakuha. Wala silang isda, walang bayan, wala silang income. So, kahirapan talaga yung na-highlight dito in a sector that's already experiencing lots of difficulties. So, next slide. Ito naman yung gender-based violence. Alam ko yung usapan natin ngayon ay trafficking, pero maraming lumabas dun sa kwentuhan namin sa mga fisher folks community na may mga kababaihan sa fisher folks community ang nakakaranas ng karahasan, at yung karahasan na ito ay meron sila nakikitang link na dulot or bunga din ng kahirapan, no? So, isang ito from Talisay, Cebu, sabi niya na binubugbog siya ng kanyang asawa para daw siyang cow. Her head was banged on the wall and she had black eyes and bruises. And even then, bago pa man yung pandemic, naranasan na daw niya ito at nag-continue lang ito sa panahon ng krisis sa kadahilan ng sa kahirapan ng buhay, wala silang makain, aburido yung asawa niya, sa kanya na ilalabas, no, yung pagiging problemado ng asawa niya. So lumalala yung violence. Isa naman ito, kahirapan din yung nakikitang dulot aside from the inequalities in the household. Sabi niya, one time my husband went home fishing, humingi ng pagkain. We did not have a good dinner kasi wala silang pera. I showed him a bowl of vegetable soup and then pinainit sa kanya. When it was done, he poured the boiling soup on my face. So it was painful and I got burned. And most of these women, hindi sila nag-report, no? Although they know saan magre-report, hindi sila or nag-hesitate sila sa pag-report ng karahasan na kanilang naranasan. So another slide on gender-based violence. Ito naman ay sa Aringay, La Union. Sinasabi nila na Ang pinakamaigting na nakikita nilang form ng violence in the community ay vowsy or pambubugbog ng asawa. At sabi din nila ay nakikita nila nangyayari ito dahil may maraming financial problems, kulang sa kita, walang trabaho. Minsan naman dahil lasing yung asawa or nag-cheating or jealousy. Dahil walang pera, walang kinita, walang papakain sa mga anak. So gaya din yung na-mention na kanina. Na-mention din nila na may trafficking or prostitution sa mga bata o babae at although hindi siya sing common ng vowsy, nangyayari pa rin ito at nakikita nila na minsan ito ay dahil sa kawalan ng pera at nagagamit yung mga anak for child acts in exchange for money. So alam nila na ang kahirapan ay nakikita nilang may link ito sa nangyayaring karahasan sa kanilang lipunan. So next slide. Ito I think ay from Lucena City. Doon naman ay naikwento ng isa sa mga kababaihang fisher folks na may dumarating na malaking barko at minsan yung mga kababaihan ay sumasakay or sumasapa sa barkong ito kung saan din sila ay naaabuso or namumulestya. Minsan din naman nakakapuslit yung mga batang babae pasakay sa barko, and these are all forms of trafficking no, na na-mention na kanina, kahit na because as mentioned kanina, it's irrelevant kung may pagpayag ng biktima, no, dahil exploitation ito ng vulnerabilities. So ang nangyari dahil nga sa kahirapan, yung mga batang babae mismo at yung parents nila mismo ay nagkukonsente na aakyat ng barko yung kanilang mga anak. Minsan nare-rescue ng DSWD, minsan sila ay nakakapuslit. So meron ding mga dalagitang na involved sa drugs at naglilid din sa kanila sa different forms of violence. Meron ding nagbahagi sa Lucena na babae ay nagiging prostituted dahil sa kahirapan at tumigil lamang nung siya ay nahuli ng kanyang asawa na ito na pala yung ginagawa daw niya para lang makapag-earn ng income for the family. May mga bata rin na nagrereklamo na minumulas siya ng stepfather, na action na naman ito daw ng barangay, sabi na nagbahagi sa Lucena City. So, these are some of the findings that we had na gusto namin ibahagi, no, para lang nasa diskusyon ng trafficking ay maging klaro din na meron siyang connection dun sa vulnerability, may connection siya sa kahirapan, at sabi nga ng isang forum sa NAPSI na nadaluhan ko recently, hindi natin matutugunan ang karahasan, gender-based violence, trafficking, violence against women, kung hindi natin tutugunan ang kahirapan. So importante din na i-address natin at i-address natin yung vulnerability na ito dahil hanggat nandyan yan, marami pa rin kababaihan, batang babae ang may exposed sa different forms of gender-based violence. So lastly, yung recommendation na yung ibabahagi ko, ito ay ilan lamang at inisyal. Sabi ng mga babae na kausap namin, dapat i-ensure ang effective implementation ng Magna Carta of Women, lalo na yung provisions of women fisher folks. Mukhang kulang pa yung ating kampanya dahil kung ang mga kababaihang fisher folks mismo ay hindi nakakakilala na sila ay fisher folks, then kailangan pa nating paigtingin so that the provisions of the law na pinaglaban ng mga maraming advocates ay may enjoy sa araw-araw na buhay ng mga kababaihang mangingisda. Ensure access to information, resources, training, and livelihood. Yun talaga yung kanilang panawagan. No? Hindi lang dapat na yung husbands nila yung nabibigyan ng kapital, livelihood, or aid ng gobyerno. Dapat kilalanin na sila mismo ay mga fisher folks and dapat may access din sa kung ano man yung ayuda, livelihood, training na ibibigay ng gobyerno as women fisher folks. And rekomendasyon din na palakasin, strengthen, establish, kasi yung ibang lugar na napuntahan wala talaga silang organization of women fisher folks. So dapat i-establish, i-strengthen, and i-support yung women fisher folks organization at isulong din ang pagpapalista ng lahat ng mga kababaihang mangingisda sa listahan ng BIFAR para sila ay ma-recognize, sila ay makasama sa data, sila ay mabigyan ng ayuda, at sila ay maisama sa strategies na ide-develop for the sector. Isa din sa kanilang mga rekomendasyon ay to enhance training of barangay vow desk in fisher communities. I-include din ito include yung komunidad sa training in partnership include sila sa training so that they can be partners in referral of community women na nakakaranas ng violence or trafficking in communities. Enhance capacities of women fisher folks. Rights nila kasi sila din mismo hindi nila alam yung karapatan nila, including capacitating them in terms of referrals and response in cases of GBV, at lalo na kung may nakikita sila or naobserbahan na mga cases of trafficking in the area. So isang hamon ito sa ating ahensya ng gobyerno na tumutugon sa karahasan, sa trafficking, na maisama yung mga areas and communities na alam natin doon madalas nanggagaling ang mga babae at batang babae na tatraffic, at kung saan dahil sa kahirapan mataas yung vulnerabilidad na sila ay mapupunta sa situations of exploitation. So yun lang lamang po, and we hope that we will be able to present the fuller report of the results of our FGDs sometime next week in time for Women's Month. Thank you again sa PCW for inviting us, and magandang tanghali po sa lahat.
Maraming salamat, Attorney Twyla, sa isang napakamakabuluhang pagbabahagi tungkol doon sa naging resulta ng inyong focus group discussion kasama ang ating mga kababaihang mangingisda. Kagaya nga ng nasabi ni Attorney Twyla, yung mga kababaihan mismo, hindi sila aware na member pala sila ng fisher folk community. Kasi meron talagang mga stereotypes sa ating community na akala nila yung ginagawa nila bahagi lang yon ng kanilang role as wives or members of the family. Hindi nila nakikita na pwede din silang mag-access, noon nga sinasabi ni Attorney Twyla, mga services or yung rights na napapaloob. For example, doon sa ating Magna Carta of Women, dahil meron tayo doong provision on the marginalized women. So we have to remember, as duty bearers, we in government, that we should make our programs responsive to the needs of all our stakeholders, including our women, to include gender perspective. So we should focus our interventions that are specific for various sectors. Iko-customize dapat natin yan sa kanilang pangangailangan. And we have to remember always our vulnerable sectors, lalong-lalo na yung ating mga kababaihan nga at kabataan who are more exposed to violence and exploitation. So maraming salamat, Attorney Twyla, Attorney Karla, at kay Attorney Yvette para sa mga pagbabahaging inyong ginawa ngayong hapon sa ating online talakayan. So marami pong naging presentations and discussion, kung kaya't ngayon po gusto ko naman pong buksan ang ating forum para marinig naman po ang mga tanong na manggagaling sa ating mga Facebook viewers. So babasahin ko na po ngayon. Ang magiging kasama po natin na sasagot sa mga katanungan ng ating mga viewers ngayong hapon ay si Attorney Twyla at si Attorney Karla. Are you still both there, Attorney Twyla and Attorney Karla? So the first...
Here, ma'am.
Yes po, ayan. The first question is, what if a traffic person consents? Mula kay Miss Letty V. So I think part ng presentation mo to, Attorney Karla, no?
So just to reiterate, kahit na nag-consent ang victim, that is irrelevant in human trafficking. Because again, under human trafficking, ang nire-recognize ng law, na-exploit siya. The person was taken advantage of, either because of his or her economic vulnerability, walang pera, or because of lack of education. So the person was exploited and taken advantage of. So kahit na nagsabi pa yan ng yes, that is irrelevant in human trafficking.
Ayan, maraming salamat, Attorney Karla. At na-emphasize din yan dun sa isang example na naibigay ni Attorney Twyla dun sa last part ng kanyang presentation, no? Regarding yung dynamics at saka yung relationship niya nga with poverty and other instances. Would you like to add something, Attorney Twyla?
Tama po, no? Although pinaliwanag na ni Attorney Karla, marami tayong mga examples talaga na dahil sa kahirapan, parents mismo yung nagdadala or yung babae mismo yung sinasabi pumapayag siya. Pero ang importante ni highlight ay it's not relevant at ma-prosecute pa rin yung mga trafficker for that. At maganda ding matingnan na kahit nasabihin ng kababaihan doon na may pagpayag doon, makikita pa rin natin na isa itong forma ng exploitation at tingnan natin saan nanggagaling yung pagpayag na yun, ano yung ugat ng pagpayag na yun. At doon yung naipapakita ito nun sa ating presentation na madalas rooted din siya sa poverty, kahirapan at yung vulnerabilities talaga ng mga kababaihan na ini-exploit ng mga traffickers. And that's why our laws are crafted in such manner, kasi kinikilala na may pag-aabuso or exploitation of vulnerabilities.
Ayan, thank you very much, Attorney Karla and Attorney Twyla, no, the exploitation that is happening. For our next question from our Facebook participants, from Paulo S. May massage parlor po sa amin na mukhang underage ang therapist, quote-unquote. Nag-offer din daw po sila ng special services pero wala po akong ebidensya. Pwede po ba at saan dapat i-report ang mga ganitong kaso? Siguro po unahin ulit natin si Attorney Karla.
Okay. We have women's desk in the PNP. Pwede na lang i-report yon. Tapos pwedeng gumawa ng paraan kung paano mag-build up ng case ang PNP. We also have the anti-human trafficking desk in the NBI. So they could go there and report that also para magkaroon ng case build up, and then we could have enough evidence to file the case with the prosecution.
Ayan, maraming salamat, no, sa presentation kanina. Nakita natin kung ano nga yung mga ways na maaari tayong makapag-report dahil lahat tayo, kung meron tayong nalalaman tungkol sa trafficking, no, hindi tayo kailangang maging kamag-anak ng biktima para tayo ay mag-report at magsalita laban sa trafficking, no. So kung meron po tayong nalalaman na palagay natin ay maaaring meron pong mga biktima ng trafficking, so mahalaga po na magsalita po tayo laban dito. All right po, for our next question. May kakilala po akong victim ng trafficking sa ibang bansa, pero natatakot po siyang makulong pag nag-report siya. Saan po siya pwedeng lumapit ano po ang proseso na mangyayari? So mula po kay Cristobal, kay Mr. Cristobal. Attorney Karla, kayo po ba ulit? Attorney Twyla, gusto niyo po bang sagutin? Alam din po ito ni Attorney Twyla dahil meron din pong ombud tayo.
Mauna na si Attorney Karla para yung... Sige, I'll just add on.
Ayan, add on daw po. So, from iyakat daw, perspective muna, Attorney Karla.
Huwag kayong matatakot na tumakbo sa embahada natin. The embassy could always help us even if we're abroad. So, from there, you could seek help. Ayun po. Sige, Attorney, you could add on to that.
Thank you. So, isa actually challenge sa amin sa CHR how to address victims of violence and trafficking na nasa labas ng bansa. And tama po yun, yung isa talagang angkla ng mga OFWs or those who are in distress na mga migrant workers ay yung ating embahada, kasi meron naman din silang mga social welfare attaches na kayang mag-respond at in fact meron din tayong expanded legal fund na available for them. Pero isa din natin na pwedeng tingnan ay yung mga organizations working in the country. Meron pong mga support for migrant workers na pwede nating lapitan din dahil madalas meron din silang mga assistance na nabibigay, either legal or psychosocial na pangangailangan, at nakakapag-coordinate din sila sa embahada para ma-amplify yung sense of urgency ng case. Useful din na meron tayong hotlines. In fact, may hotlines na po yung ating different agencies sa government na kung saan pwede kayong tumawag. I just don't have it. Pero babaeng biyahero. Yung proyekto ng UN Women with our other agencies, I think, has that. And lastly, kung isa ding pwedeng tingnan ay yung counterpart namin na mga human rights institutions sa bansa kung saan kayo, they can also help you to access remedies in country. So, meron pong mga kagaya ng CHR sa other countries, ang tawag namin sa kanila ay National Human Rights Institution. Pwede niyong i-check if in that country merong ganun, and they can also provide legal assistance or advice sa mga victims of trafficking or human rights violations na nangyayari sa bansa nila. And in Qatar, we have a memorandum of agreement with Qatar so that Qatar NHRI so that kung may nangyaring human rights violations ay pwede namin mai-refer sa isa't isa yung kaso na iyon. Pero yun nga lang, limited lang yung scope ng jurisdiction ng human rights institution as compared to, of course, the FA or kung ano man yung pwedeng magresponde doon sa bansa mismo. Thank you. Nakamute ka, Becca.
Ayun pala, nakamute pala ako. So yun nga, ang mga maaaring lapitan ng ating mga kababayan, no, kung sila ay mangingibang bansa o kung may kamag-anak silang o kakilala na nasa ibang bansa na nangangailangan ng tulong, no, ang ating mga embahada at ating mga organizations, no. Sa ating ayakat din, meron tayong mga members from our NGO, 'di ba, na maaring tumulong din. So we are all one in this, no. So collective dapat yung effort natin in addressing all forms of violence against women, including trafficking in persons. So for our next question, trafficking din po ba ang mga go-go bars? Ayan, very generic. Attorney Karla, I saw you smiling na, so take it away.
I-define muna natin kung ano yung go-go bars.
Ano yun?
Ano yun? Well, if you're talking about girly bars, where they offer women para gumawa ng sexual favors, definitely, pwede siyang maging human trafficking, potential human trafficking case yan. Pero if you say go-go bars na wala lang, you just stay and drink, walang trafficking doon. So, I need to know ano yung go-go bars.
Oo, baka siguro din nung isang nag-comment natin na baka may napapansin siyang kakaiba, no? So, but technically, kung go-go bar siya, hindi agad, no? May gusto kang i-add, Attorney Twyla, regarding dito?
Titingnan din natin, siguro tama naman si Attorney Karla doon, no? We would need to know more about the circumstances to say if there's trafficking, babalik tayo doon sa definition. Pero yung isa siguro na pwede nating tingnan, yung circumstances, paano nakarating yung mga kababaihang nandun, na nag-serve, I presume, nagsiserve, sumasayaw, etc. Kasi meron din kasi tayong alam na maraming mga instances that these women were offered work as domestic workers, work na sa tingin nila ay pagdating nila sa Maynila, iba na yung kanilang nagiging trabaho at sila ay napupunta na sa kalagayan ng prostitution. So in that cases, klaro na may trafficking. So titingnan natin yung circumstances kung paano sila nakarating at ano yung pinapagawa sa kanila ng kanilang yung owner ng bar na yun. Maganda din natin titingnan yun. Kasi nga tawag natin prostituted women, di ba? Kinikilala natin that they are victims and forced into this particular situation.
Yes, the prostituted women, no? Hindi natin sila tinatawag na prostitutes or sex workers, no? So magandang balikan natin yung na-discuss nga ni Attorney Karla, no? So regarding the acts, the means, and the purpose para ma-determine natin kung trafficking in person, no? Hindi porket ito yung lugar, automatic na sasabihin natin na yun ay isang form na ng prostitution or trafficking yung nagaganap doon, no? So titingnan muna natin yung mga elements. Dapat masatisfy natin siya para masabi natin na may TIP nagaganap. Okay, ang next question from Rolly G. Magtratrabaho po ako abroad at may kausap na po akong recruitment agencies. Gusto ko lang pong makasiguro, ano po ba ang signs na trafficking scam na po ang pinapasok ko? Ayan. So, Attorney Karla, mauna ka ulit?
Pwede naman si Attorney. Si Attorney Twyla naman.
Siguro, yung isang indicator would be, of course, ang alam ko ngayon, your contracts must be approved here at dapat yung contract that you have na-approve sa'yo, yun din yung contract na nag-govern ng employment mo sa labas ng bansa. Ang madalas kasi naririnig natin ng mga cases ay yung nagkakaroon ng contract parang variation at yung variation na yun hindi lang kaperahan ang involved, yung the kind of work that you will be doing in the country, no. So una din dapat registered yung mga basic, no, mga red flags kasi kung hindi registered bakit nandyan ka. At saka meron tayong mga rules din doon sa ating Migrant Workers Act na meron tayong alam natin na may pag-interface yung yung dalawang batas na yan at some point yung trafficking at saka yung labor trafficking na nangyayari. So titingnan naman natin yung ano yung mga current policies ng POEA in place for recruitment agencies, if that agency is following with the policies, transparent ba sila, kung may hindi transparent, talagang dapat kailangan nating magtanong pa. And then also, before you get deployed, importante na you have all the information you need to ensure access to justice. Ibig sabihin yung mga hotlines na pwedeng tawagan. Hindi naman na sinasabi na trafficker talaga yung nag-ano sa'yo, but to protect yourself, be able to have those numbers, the number of the embassy where you're going, the country where you're going, the hotline numbers for trafficking, etc. That would help you to protect yourself. Yun yung na initial na iisip ko, no. Red flags pag hindi nagko-comply with government requirements and policies. And I think there's also a list, may website somewhere na nakalista or naka-blacklist yung mga may mga kaso ng mga ahensya. So yun.
And to add to that, it's an actual case. So may isang tao na naging traffic victim through, yun nga, yung ni-recruit siya to work abroad. Pero what is surprising is that hindi siya pinagamit ng passport niya. Sabi, work abroad, pero ang visa niya is only tourist. So again, yeah. So red flag kaagad siya. So under a different name and under a different visa, tas hindi pa registered sa POEA yung nag-recruit sa kanya. So yon, let's be circumspect pag gano'n na siya.
Okay, maraming salamat sa ating panelist, no? So mahalaga talaga titingnan natin yung red flag kung may nararamdaman kang kakaiba, meron kang hinala. So hindi naman po masama na mag-validate, no? Hindi naman po kagad natin i-assume na mga illegal recruiters nga po sila. Maaari po nating i-check yung mga relevant websites na nabanggit ng ating mga panelist para ma-verify po yung kailangan yung information para po ligtas po tayo sa ating pagtatrabaho. Ang next question po natin, yung pamangkin ko na 13-year-old ni-recruit na magtrabaho sa Maynila. Nalaman po namin na hindi po siya sinisweldohan. Pinapakain lang po tapos binibigyan ng 500 peso allowance per month. Trafficking na po ba ito? Ayan, so may element siyang binabanggit. Unahin ko naman po ngayon si Attorney Karla.
Sige. Minor siya. So, potential kaagad yan. May vulnerability kaagad yan. So, it doesn't matter na i-prove mo that the person was recruited, was transferred, was transported through force. Hindi na kailangan yon. Tapos, hindi siya binabayaran. So, you already have the acts, diba? Kasi transported, maintained, hired. Okay. You have the exploitative purpose. Could be the exploitative purpose kasi hindi siya binabayaran. Tapos ano pa yung isang condition? Hindi siya binibigyan lang ng allowance ng 500 and not allowed to go out, something like that. So possible siya na trafficking case. And not only a trafficking case, baka worst form of child labor pa yan. Or ano pa, 7610 kasi underage yung bata.
Ayan. So Attorney Twyla, I think may mga ganyang cases din na na-forward sa CHR na similar po yung situation dito sa
Agree po. I agree. I don't think I have anything to add dun sa sinagot ni Attorney Karla. And yun na nga, madalas na nangyayari. And I think siguro yung paalala ko lang dun sa mga nag-i-employ mismo. We should stop the practice. Or minsan kasi sabihin, ay tinutulungan ko lang naman yung family. But of course, we have laws, anti-child abuse, meron tayong labor laws na prohibit niyan. At baka mapunta tayo dun sa alanganin na talagang mapipenalize tayo. So be careful na lang, circumspect dun sa pag-hire para hindi tayo makalabag ng batas.
Ayan, maraming salamat Attorney Twyla and Attorney Karla. So sa ating nag-comment, yan, narinig na natin yung views ng ating panelists. So maaari nating sumangguni tayo dun sa mga nabanggit na kanina na mga ahensya kung gusto natin ng tulong para matulungan natin yung minor. So ang ating next question, how does the current COVID-19 situation affect? First, current anti-trafficking in persons efforts. So ito yung presentation kanina ni Attorney Yvette. And 2 possible re-trafficking or trafficking of returning overseas Filipinos who lost their jobs once deployment resumes. No, so ano yung current efforts na discuss na to kanina. So baka mas mag-focus tayo konti na lang na pagpapalawag dito, and then yung possible re-trafficking of returning overseas Filipinos who lost their jobs once deployment resumes. So unahin ko ngayon si Attorney Twyla naman.
Siguro, at as I mentioned, kilalanin natin na yung COVID-19 pandemic ay nag-exacerbate ng vulnerabilities ng mga already vulnerable na mga population. So kasama sa mga vulnerable populations are OFWs. So were repatriated because of the pandemic. O napilitan na bumalik, nawalan ng trabaho. And kung ang level kasi ng assistance ng government ay hindi natugunan or hindi sapat para mabuhay nila yung kanilang pamilya, mataas din talaga yung posibilidad that kakapit sa patalim yung mga marami nating mga kababayan once deployment, no. So doon na papasok yung ano naman for the government siguro, ano naman yung measures in place to prevent fraudulent agencies, yung mga exploitative agencies na sa dami ng gustong makabalik agad, they would resort to agencies that would offer them fast track na makabalik uli sila sa employment. So I think itingin siguro yung pag-monitor ng mga agencies na questionable, na hindi na-follow ng processes. And yung isa din, for those who are repatriated, hindi pa naman kasi agad-agad babalik yung COVID, yung mag-normalize. So marami sa ating mga na ipabalik na ng mga migrant workers. Ang tanong, under NCRO, yung ating reintegration office, ano naman yung na-offer natin? Because alam natin sa Migrant Workers Act, dapat meron tayong packages for returning migrants. Eh maliit lang yun, 15,000, 25,000. Would that be enough para makapagsimula sila ng buhay nila uli? So kailangan tingnan kung paano pa yung additional assistance na pwedeng ibigay ng government for returning migrants para hindi sila babalik dun sa loop na may exploit sila or magiging biktima uli sila ng trafficking. Border control probably din. Yung thesis ko kasi ay yung sa borders ng Sabah and Malaysia, and a lot of those Filipinos na traffic din go through that route, no. So it could also be a possible response na tugunan din natin kung saan yung mga other ways or other ways na makaalis or umaalis yung mga tao just to find employment. So yun.
Ayan, thank you. Would you like to add, Attorney Karla?
I totally agree with Attorney Twyla. Tama yun. Kasi I remember Attorney mentioned the underlying causes of human trafficking. Not until and unless we address that, there will always be a probability of re-victimization or re-trafficking of these people. So it's always a whole of nation approach. Hindi lang ito sa prosecution, hindi lang ito sa law enforcement, hindi. Dapat it's all agencies of government working together to ensure that Filipinos will not be re-trafficked.
Yeah, thank you, Attorney Karla. No? So all the elements, the need for prevention, for integration, for all the programs, for all of us in government and even civil society to work together. No? Like itong ating online talakayan, no? Through our advocacy campaign, we are able to reach our audiences ng ating mga kababayan, no? Para malaman nila yung kanilang mga karapatan at hindi sila maging biktima ng pang-aabuso, particularly ng trafficking in person. So ito, how to prosecute if witness is abroad, from Ms. Jean M. So Attorney Karla?
Parang kilala ko yun ah. You could always ask for extradition. Pag may extradition treaties tayo, you could let the person come back to the Philippines through legal processes. Depende yon sa agreement from country to country, between the Philippines and the country, kung nasaan siya. Ngayon, kung hindi siya ma-extradite, you could chase after the person. If it is about labor, go after the person who did the recruitment. If that person is in the Philippines, chase after him or her kasi may liability siya.
Thank you, Attorney Karla, for that. Attorney Twyla? Any advice? So maganda yun, no? Tinitingnan natin, hindi lang yung TIP law yung pwedeng gamitin. We could use other laws to be able to prosecute yung mga...
Wala na akong may dadagdag dun sa very specific naman yung question eh.
Okay, sige po. So we move on to our next question. So asking lang po, sa LTO licensing po, kasama ang waiver na magdo-donate ng parts of the eyes if something happened. Is that also trafficking? So I think ito yung organ donor, yung tick box. So ang pagbebenta po ba, so may next question pa siya, ang pagbebenta po ba ng dugo ay isa din pong form ng trafficking? Attorney Twyla. Ayan, unahin natin si Attorney Twyla.
At ako pinapauna mo niya. Sa akin naman.
Alternating kayo.
Ang alam ko yung nasa batas natin ay organ. So, definition ng organ yung titingnan natin. At saka, pagbibenta, may nagbibenta ba ng dugo? Ang alam ko kasi bloodletting yung di ba, volunteer mo binibigay. So, I would rather have our experts from the Ayakat answer.
So, sorry, Karla, ayan, dalawa yung tanong niya. Yung una, yung mata, tapos yung dugo. Ito, maraming pangangailangan dito.
Oh, but that's very possible. Apart from the kidneys, madami pa kasing organs. But let's go to the LTO. So again, let's go to the elements of trafficking. Acts. Was that person recruited? Was he offered, transported, transferred? Tapos, was he forced? Let's go to the means, coerced, for the exact purpose of organ donation. Di ba hindi naman? Kasi yung person, he voluntarily went to the LTO, signed the waiver for purposes of driving. Hindi naman siya nirecruit ng LTO to donate, di ba? And I don't think there is such a thing of exploitation there kasi he did it voluntarily and without anyone exploiting his vulnerability. So let's go naman to the second question about the blood. This is very interesting. What the law on human trafficking says is at the minimum, the purpose should be for exploitation. At the minimum. Tapos yung susunod, comma, which includes. So, baka pwede. But if I were the prosecutor handling this case, tapos nagbebenta ng blood, I might probably file 2 cases. First will be for the human trafficking, kasi mataas ang penalty eh. I need, if ever na criminal to, I want to put this person in jail para hindi na siya makasira pa ng buhay ng iba. And secondly, as a safety net, baka mag-file ako ng ibang special law. Parang, if I recall we have the special law on the blood donation. We have certain requirements. So I will file 2 special laws for that. Tapos let's see, test case natin kung anong sasabihin ng korte.
Usually, kapag ganito, very interesting, ang nabibigay na example ay kidney, no? So, yung example na tinanong niya is on the blood, no? So, interesting question. So, thank you for the wonderful response, no? Natututo talaga yung ating mga online viewers about not just trafficking, but other laws, and how to do prosecution. So, we move on to our next question. If a trafficked person refused to continue to file the case against the perpetrators, pwede pa rin po bang ituloy ng social worker or other law enforcement? Ayan. Salamat po.
Should I go ahead?
Okay, Karla?
Attorney Twyla, is it okay?
Okay daw.
So, since it is a crime against the dignity and the individual, no? Even if the person, kahit na ayaw na mag-file ng kaso, kunwari ang bata, pwede pa rin na i-continue yung human trafficking case. Ang question lang, pwede ba, enough ba yung evidence na ma-represent ni fiscal sa court to convince the judge na guilty itong kinakasuhan natin? But there are other means to do that. Kunwari pagbata, Diba, you could get forensic testimony from the kid dun sa PGH. Pwede naman eh. It can. Basta just make sure na enough yung evidence mo. But if the person refuses to go on with the case, pwede pa rin. Yun na lang yung burden na, nandun na lang sa fiscal kung kaya niyang i-prove sa court siya.
Oo, mahihirapan siya lang kung sakasakali, kung hindi cooperative si victim. No? Pero hindi lang siya nag-a-apply, attorney, dito no sa case natin ng trafficking, even the other vow laws, no? Kagaya ng rape, ng other forms. Pagka may nalalaman tayong ganitong case, pwede pa rin siyang ipagpatuloy even if si victim mismo ay hindi pa, parang hesitant na siya na ipagpatuloy yung case. All right po, moving on to our next question. So may penalty po ba ang bibili ng organ at nagbenta ng organ sa isang tao? If yes, ano pong kaso ng nagbenta? So dalawa po, kung sino daw po yung liable doon sa pagbebenta ng organ. I think tumatang muna si Atty. Karla. So si Atty. Karla, na ibigay ko na ang floor kay Atty. Karla.
Pagbebenta ng organ, possible case kaagad yan ng human trafficking. So ang mape-penalize doon, hindi yung nagbenta, hindi yung may-ari ng organ, but the person who posed as a middleman selling that organ and other persons who help sell that organ. Pwede yung doktor na umasikaso, yung may-ari ng ospital or yung hospital mismo at saka yung middleman. But never that person who sold his organ. Because again, in human trafficking, the law recognizes that this person has vulnerability. And what is that? Economic vulnerability. Nangangailangan ng pera yung tao. And that is what the trafficker pounced on. It took advantage of that vulnerability of the person.
So yan, magandang dimension yan na hina-highlight natin from the very start pa lang ng presentation, no? Yung element of exploitation because we have vulnerabilities. No, so yan, alam din natin ngayon sino pa yung mga ibang liable, no? Hindi lang yung middleman or yung go-between nga, kundi even yung doctor, no, na nag-perform ng surgery to harness the organ. Yan, pwede silang maging liable. Moving on to our next question. Yan, daming tanong, interesting questions ng ating participants. Very active even on a Saturday, no? What are some of the strategic measures to address vulnerabilities, particularly in the barangay level? So from Miss Jean L. So ayan, siguro dito si Attorney Tuayan tatawagin ko bilang nag-share ka ng presentation nga regarding the FGDs conducted by CH.
Importante talaga that we engage at the community level at palakasin yung empowerment ng women's organization, people's organization on the ground, paigtigin yung capacity building. In isang kakakibat na or katwin na research namin this year is yung GBV mapping of legal referral mechanisms na ginagawa din naming regional office at ginawa din nila last year. At palaging lumalabas na sa recommendation part, palaging sa barangay level, humihingi pa rin sila ng capacity building. Ibig sabihin, at the level of those community women sa baba, nangangailangan pa rin sila ng mga ganitong mga intervention, opportunity to learn more about the law, opportunity to learn how to access remedies. At dapat na natin na madalas kasi lawyers lang yung may hawak ng ganung kaalaman. Dapat yung kaalaman na yun ay ma-cascade natin sa baba dahil hindi naman ang konti lang ng lawyers or dumadami, ang konti lang ng lawyers sa mundo at kailangan ang kaalaman na ito ay may baba para yung mga nasa komunidad ay kaya nilang matulungan at masuportahan yung isa't isa. How to respond when violence happens at saka how to also expand and empower communities and women's organizations so that papupunta sila sa rights claiming at saka paniningil din ng mga duty bearers. Kasi part yun ng empowerment eh. You recognize that you have rights, you access remedies in case violation of rights, you are able to demand what you are entitled to at the barangay level. So lalo nang i-disenyo din natin yung interventions natin dun sa vulnerabilities of communities that we work with. For women with disabilities, madalas sa barangay level, ini-exclude na nila kasi wala silang sign language interpreter. Wala silang venue for those who are persons with disability. Mataas, nasa second floor yung venue. So palagi, we leave people behind. So it's important na in our strategies sa barangay level, we target and we create affirmative measures and actions that would ensure participation of those most vulnerable. With that, magkuha kayo ng sign language interpreter, yung meron kayong materials that would cater to indigenous peoples or communities within the area. And these are also our advocacies with other government agencies na when we plan, when we strategize, we try to include those who are hindi nararating and mostly madalas sila yung pinaka-vulnerable. And we always work with community women on that. Madalas din siguro, I know sa ating GAD planning and budgeting, nandun yung requirement that it should be consultative and participatory with the sectors that we work with. Siguro palakasin pa natin yung part na yun so that the women themselves could inform us of what they need and what programs and what strategies would respond to their needs. Ginagawa namin ng mga sectoral monitoring, yun yung gusto ding abutin, no? We gather women's stories so that it could also inform strategies and recommendation, strategies and policies to be adopted by other government agencies meant to respond to their situation. So yun.
Ayan, very comprehensive. Maraming salamat, Attorney Twyla, no, for emphasizing the need to take into consideration the vulnerabilities of our specific sectors, no, women, children, PWD, yung mga IP natin, no, kung yung ating LGU, may mga nasasakupan tayong indigenous people, kailangan sinasali din natin sila sa ating mga consultation, no, para holistic at magbe-benefit talaga lahat ng members ng community dun sa ating intervention. Okay. So last two questions na po tayo. So this one po is for, I think this one will be for Attorney Twyla again. So here in Taguig, we have women fisher folks who do not know that they belong to the organization of fisher folks. How can we VAUC officers assist them in identifying themselves for them to receive benefits and assistance given by our local government? From Ms. Nida L.
Rights awareness training would be one important step, and including them in the programming of the barangay. I know we always have orientation of the Magna Carta of Women, pero even me, from my experience, madalas nagsastart tayo, these are the rights, and then pagdating sa vulnerable sectors, ito yung vulnerable sectors. We don't go through what are the rights of each of the vulnerable sectors. So maganda if you are a barangay na nasa fisher folks community talaga, na i-target natin yung capacity building sa mga kababaihan nito. As a desk officer and seeing the link of poverty and those living in fisher folks community, pwede niyong i-propose kay Kapitan na maisama sa pagproprograma next year or part ng programa ng barangay is a capacity building for women fisher folks. You can also tap our regional office dahil kakakandak lang namin ng forum na ito, meron ng data, so they can also provide a lecture para on Magna Carta of Women para malaman ng fisher folks community what their rights are. And pwede rin sa forum na yun, mag-invite kayo ng BIFAR who could also provide an orientation who are fisher folks, ano yung mga available remedies or available programs na meron na yung lugar ninyo patungkol sa mga kababaihang mangingisda. So yun nga din, no, kung hindi mo alam yung karapatan mo, hindi mo ito maipaglalaban, hindi mo malaman na na-violate na ito. So importante talaga yung mga platform na ganito so that we'll be able to reach more of our vulnerable communities. At importante yung role gaya ng mga desk officers, mga nandito, mga tanod, community leaders, kasi sila yung nakaka-flag at the community level na ay hindi pala natin to nagagawa. And you also have access to PCW, CHR, Ayakat, Ayak Bausi. So, ibig sabihin, natutulay nyo rin yung mga leaders in the community level, yung mga vulnerable women to possible government services and assistance.
Ayan. Thank you, Attorney Twyla. So in addition to that po, no, marami pong materials, no, kasi itong ating platform, this is one way, no, pero baka may limitations po sila in terms of internet. Ito, live stream, itong live stream po natin, after our live stream, this will be available po para maaari din pong i-share ng mga hindi nakapanood sa atin ngayon, no, to spread information on trafficking. And also meron tayong mga brochures, leaflet na pwedeng ipamahagi doon sa ating members of community para makatulong pa sa information dissemination and awareness raising campaign. Okay, so last question. Ito na po ang ating last question from the GAD Office of Santa Lucia. If the parent of the trafficking in-person victim the one who engaged in transporting the victim and worked in a certain massage parlor, ano po ang pwedeng ikaso sa parent o guardian? Kasi po nawala na po ng trabaho yung parent, kaya nagawa sa anak niya na ibugaw ito. Ayan. So I think this one I will give to Attorney Karla.
That's a clear case of qualified trafficking in persons. It's not a reason, hindi rason ng magulang na walang pera para ibugaw ang sariling anak. So under the law, the law recognizes this, and pag ang magulang ang nagbugaw ng sarili niyang anak para ma-exploit ng iba, that is qualified trafficking in persons at pwede siyang ma-penalize ng up to life imprisonment yan at magpre-prescribe yan ng 20 years pa. So mataas ang charge dyan, and the mom cannot say as a defense na nangailangan siya ng pera. Because the law is very clear on that. Pag ang nanay ang nag-traffic, makakasuhan siya.
Ayan. Very clear, no, Attorney Karla. So yan, thank you very much for that, no. So yan po, ibabala sa mga nanonood. Kung may mga kakilala po kayong ganyan, no, stiffer ang penalties natin for qualified trafficking in person, no. Lalo na po yun, magulang po siya. So nandoon naman sa ating batas yung circumstances na magpapataw ng stiffer penalties in case you do trafficking in person, no. Longer pa yung prescriptive period, no. So longer time. So kung ngayon ay 10 years old yung bata, pwede pa yan hanggang 30 years old, no? Kahit maging 30 na siya, pwede pa yang maisampa yung kaso, no? So maraming salamat sa ating mga participants, sa lahat ng mga nagtanong at sa ating mga very able panelists for sharing your knowledge to all our participants. Yan, no? Talagang marami silang natutunan dito sa ating afternoon talakayan, sa ating online talakayan towards vow-free barangays. Ayan. So ngayon po, maraming salamat Attorney Twyla. Ayan, si Attorney Twyla, even on a Saturday, busy na busy, meron pa siyang isa pang webinar na a-attendan. Ayan, so baka gusto niyo siyang sundan on the information dissemination that they will do also. So maraming salamat Attorney Twyla, Attorney Karla for sharing your knowledge to our participants. Yan, sana po ay nakatulong kami sa talakayang ito para malaman ninyo yung mga ipinagbabawal in relation to trafficking in persons at kung ano rin po yung mga maaari ninyong gawin as individuals, no? So hindi lamang po kami sa gobyerno yung may tungkulin dito, lahat ay involved sa pagsugpo ng trafficking in person. So thank you again to all our distinguished resource person. Ngayon po ay pupunta na tayo sa ating closing activities, no? So sa ating evaluation and closing activities. Para po sa mga gustong kumuha ng ating e-certificate of participation para sa talakayan ngayong hapon, narito po ang mga steps na kailangan ninyong gawin. Una, mag-fill out ng online attendance form. Ikalawa, ipadala ang inyong feedback tungkol sa activity by accomplishing PCW's Activity Evaluation Form at panghuli, mag-signify ng inyong commitment for a hashtag VowFreePH through our VowFreePH website. Makikita niyo po ang mga links sa attendance, evaluation at commitment page sa comment section at sa text description or caption ng ating live stream. Maaari nyo rin pong iscan ang ating QR code sa screen para ma-access ang ating mga sinasabing dokumento. Ayan, asa na po yung ating QR code? Ayun, there, we have our QR code. So yung mga nasa Facebook po, pwede nyo pong i-screenshot or balikan nyo po mamaya dahil magiging available naman po itong ating video after our live streaming. So ipapadala po ang e-certificate sa email na inyong isusulat sa mga forms. So make sure po na tama ang inyong details. So i-review po natin ang email address na atin pong i-input. Hanggang bukas po, December 13, 11:59 p.m., pwedeng mag-accomplish ng ating attendance and evaluation form. Uulitin ko po, only those who will fill out all 3 forms, tatlo po yung forms na kailangan nyong i-fill out until 11:59 Philippine Standard Time ng December 13, 2020 will be issued their e-certificates. So expect to receive your certificate within the month, no, within 2020. So, yan po. So now, to officially close the program and mark the culmination of the 2020 18-day campaign to end violence against women, we have our PCW Deputy Executive Director for Management Services, Ms. Cecil B. Gutierrez. Hello po, Ms. Cecil.
Hello, everyone.
The screen is yours, Ma'am Cecil.
Okay. So, yay! Patapos na tayo. Pero sa ating mga audience, sa ating mga participants, huwag niyo muna kayong mag-leave dahil kayo po ay sandali lang po.
And everybody, please stay tuned. Remember po, mag-a-announce pa po ako later ng winners ng ating Energizer.
Oh, take 2 ako, take 2. So sabi ko nga, tayo po ay patapos na pero huwag muna kayong mag-leave kasi ako po ay meron pang 1 oras na closing message para sa inyo. Just kidding. So gusto ko lang pong batiin ang lahat ng audience natin ng isang mapayapa at maligayang hapon. Lalo na po ang ating mga speakers and guests, partners, service providers, advocates and friends, ang ating mga resource persons, pero lalong-lalo na po ang ating mga VAU desk officers and barangay officials who participated in this 5-part online talakayan to end violence against women. Marami na po ang nangyari sa mga nakaraang buwan, and it is an understatement to say that 2020 has been a challenging year for all of us. But here we are, pulling off another successful, sana nga successful talaga, 18-day campaign to end violence against women, rallying the support from all directions so that we may be able to give voice to the powerless women and girls. The Philippine Commission on Women over the past months is overwhelmed with strong support and contributions from government, NGOs and CSOs, even from UN agencies and foreign embassies and other international organizations. This is our first online campaign, and its success leads us to believe that it will also be the first of many. This pandemic, COVID-19, might have taken away the opportunity to gather together, for us to gather together physically, but it surely gave us a far more collaborative platform where there is no participant limit, no first come first serve basis, and no risk to our physical health and safety. Pero siguro maraming nakakaalam sa inyo na may nauna pang pandemic dito. Ito yung violence against women, which we call as infamously as the silent pandemic. This pandemic is not one that can be cured with a simple flu shot. Its signs and symptoms often go unseen or kept secret out of fear, helplessness, or blind love. There is no herbal, dietary, or steam-based medicine to counter its effects. And the only way to be vaccinated is to create collective awareness about women's rights, vigilance against abuse, and a culture of respect without condition or fault. Violence against women has also spread inside our homes and out to the streets. The momentous enactment of the Safe Spaces Act should not distract us from the reality of how widespread and alarming sexual harassment has become, that we had to enact such extensive legislations and mechanisms to suppress it. The global infestation that is trafficking in persons, which has been discussed at length by our earlier resource persons, kagaya ni na Atty. Karla at Atty. Twyla, continues to evolve with the technology of the times. The demand for slavery, human organs, sexual exploitation, and prostitution has gone digital. The victims falling prey with a simple press of a button in exchange or hoping for a brighter future. We need to address the vulnerabilities. Kanina, panay ang vulnerability ang pinag-uusapan, ano? Kasi yun nga yung root cause ng ating mga violence that force victims into trafficking and increase access to local programs for social and economic upliftment. The victims are afraid to report, as you may have known from our resource persons, out of fear that people will not believe them or that they will be judged for putting themselves in such situations. This is why fair, efficient, and gender-sensitive prosecution is a universal requirement for all cases of violence against women and gender-based violence. But I like what Attorney Karla said, na whole-of-nation approach ang kailangan talaga natin, pagtutulong-tulong dito. The Philippine Commission on Women commits to push for more comprehensive policies and transformative campaigns for the continued protection, promotion, and fulfillment of all women's rights. To the national and local government units, the academe, the private sector, the media, NGOs, CSOs, and individuals who participated in PCW's activities and organized their own, maraming salamat po for bringing us a step closer to our goals. We are here to mark the end of the 18-day campaign to end violence against women. But hopefully, hindi po sana ito ang end ng ating pakikipaglaban for gender equality and freedom. We hope that everybody will sustain the anti-vow campaigns and not make it a seasonal agenda held every November to December of every year. So let us use po yung ating mga natutunan. Hopefully, nabuhay ang ating mga advocacy spirits so that we become advocates to reach more women, particularly the marginalized and the vulnerable groups who are very difficult to reach. On behalf of the Philippine Commission on Women, I thank you all for being with us, not only in this afternoon's webinar on trafficked persons, but during the entire duration of the campaign. So in closing, let me stress yung ating slogan, a vow-free community starts with you and me. So let us continue working together in addressing violence against women and children and other forms of gender-based violence. For this, maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat at mabuhay po kayo. Yes, okay na, tapos na.
Thank you po, Ms. Cecil. Maraming salamat for your moving message and also the call to action. Indeed, the annual campaign may close today, but our fight to end all forms of violence against women continues. Ngayon po naman, dadako tayo sa pinakihihintay ng lahat ng mga sumali sa ating energizers or mini quizzes. So ito na po ang announcement of winners ng ating energizers kanina. So here are the winners for set 1. Congratulations po sa inyong lahat. So ang mga winners po natin ay si Miss Bella Chao, Kate Moncada, Charmaine San Diego Hamito, Patricia Santos Ramage, John Lamparas, Cheryl Balatbat Santos, Rafa Badji Aguilar Ocampo, Nelia Cresino, Jovelyn Dequito, at Angelo Bugarin. So hopefully, nandito pa rin po kayong lahat at nakikita niyo po ang ating set of winners. For our quizzer, the second set of our winners for our round 2 ng Energizer, ang mga nanalo naman po natin ay si Vivian Obligar Soriano, Risa Huntarian Sirilan, Asuncion Police DNPPO, yung buong team, Kyle Liven Dave Andrino, Roselyn Bernal Torrecampo, Flor D. Cruz, Nicetas Oliveros, Renz Endriga Katigbak, Jeffrey Joff Solinas Bautista, at last but not the least, si Maria Teresa Herasmillo. So congratulations po to all our winners for rounds 1 and 2 of our energizers. I hope po na lahat po kayo ay nag-enjoy at natuto sa ating talakayan ngayong hapon. So to claim your prize, to all our winners, please message our Facebook page so we can coordinate with you. Again, sa lahat po ng mga winners, mag-send po kayo ng private message, wag po comment, through our Facebook Messenger to the official Facebook page of the Philippine Commission on Women. So iwasan po natin ang mag-post ng personal information ninyo sa ating comment section. Muli, maraming salamat po sa pagsali sa game at syempre sa pakikilahok sa ating online talakayan towards vow-free barangays. Shout out din po ulit sa ating mga speakers and guests for being with us this afternoon. And of course, a hashtag vow-free-PH shout out to the Presidential Communications Operations Office or PCOO team who extended technical support to make this virtual session successful. Magsama-sama po tayong muli sa mga susunod na episodes ng Online Talakayan towards vow-free barangays. Again, my name is Rebecca Bailosis, and it is my pleasure to be your host and moderator for this afternoon. Enjoy the rest of the day, stay safe, and remember, a vow-free community starts with you and me, with all of us.
Tayo ay